In this video, I'm going to be showing you exactly how you can enhance every single audience within your Facebook ads, specifically by using Klaviyo. Now, if you don't use Klaviyo and you have a different CRM, the principles are going to apply. I'm just going to show you how to do this within Klaviyo, and then we're going to move into the Facebook Ads Manager. This is going to be a very short video. So without further ado, let's hop in. If you're in the Klaviyo platform, first things first, you're going to need to install the Meta Ads integration and any other platforms that you might have. Once you're in and once you create this integration, you're going to see settings within here that show your lists. Now, before we get ahead of ourselves, what you actually need to be doing in here is you need to be creating lists, so these Klaviyo lists, and then porting them in to Facebook. So as you can see here, this is a few lists that we've already set up for this account. These are actually the most important ones, but you can go well beyond this based on your brand's needs. Now, how do we even create these segments / lists? It's actually very simple. So all we need to do is we need to create these lists for the first time within the Klaviyo platform. And the way that we do that is we go to Audiences, Lists, and Segments. Once we're there, we create a new list or a segment in most cases. And we're just going to name this list, we're going to say blueprint test. I like to put, what you should really do here is you should say 4 ads, just so it's really clear so that your email team doesn't use these accidentally. In this case, the most important thing for us to get are the exact replications of the ad sets, make sure I'm saying that right, of the ad sets and audiences that we're using. For example, if we run 30-day add to carts or 90-day add to carts, then what we want to basically do here is we want to use this segment builder to recreate the add to cart flow. So what someone has done or not done, person has added to cart at least once in the last 90 days. Boom. And you can see the number of profiles that have added to cart that we've collected in the last 90 days. This is a very, very small segment, so just keep that in mind. And you could do the same thing on any of your basically events coming from Shopify. You could also expand this. You could do, or someone has done initiate checkout. Well, initiate checkout actually isn't a thing in here, but checkout started would be the one. So checkout started within the last 90 days. And then we can see our audience size starts to get significantly larger, right? So we're doubling down here. You could also do some additional conditions depending on your theme, depending on what kind of setup you have. But one of the things that we have here available to us are the active on site, which is through the API. This should be set up automatically in Klaviyo. I'm not a Klaviyo expert, but if you do set this up active on site at least once within the last 90 days, what this is going to do is it's going to take anyone whose email you collected and it is finding if that person has been active on your site in a certain period of time. Now, this is technically 2 audiences, so we're just going to create this one. Once you go ahead and create this segment, which I'm not going to do for this preview, but you can go ahead and click create this segment, it will become a segment in your normal list here. Once it is a segment in this list here, you can go back to integrations, back to meta ads, and then you will see if you click add a connection, you could then select your exact Klaviyo list. Now in this case, I have marked appropriately ads. And we have the ads add to cart 90 days, which is right here. So what I would like to do is in my actual Facebook platform, if I go to my retargeting setup here, and we have our add to cart, let's say this is our add to cart 90-day audience that we've created. And again, this is unique to your business, to your setup, but giving you the general rules here. Add to cart 90-day setup here. We're going to go down to our audiences. Of course, in this case, I've not set this up. This is just a demo, but we're going to switch our setup. We're going to make sure we have, this is the key part of this is that we have our add to cart from our pixel. So we have our add to cart 90 days, which is coming from the pixel. Don't select users as a suggestion. And then in addition to this, we're going to find this audience here, which we've named ads ATC 90. We're going to copy that. We're going to drop that right in here. And we can see it's set up in here. Now, this one hasn't been added properly. It's not really a big deal because I just created it 2 minutes ago. But in most cases, these should show up green. And now what we have here is our add to carts from our pixel and our add to cart from a customer list that's coming directly from Klaviyo. Now, a lot of people will say, okay, it's the same exact thing. Who cares? The reality is yeah, it's the same thing, but perhaps there's a little bit more matching going on. And perhaps that 5 or 10 or 15% matching that you get better is going to result in a 5 or 10 or 15% improvement in sales. I don't like to let anything slip through the cracks. Why should you? It's very simple. So in this case right here, I would highly, highly recommend you add both of these and do this for all of your audiences. You can go well beyond these 5 that I gave here or 4 that I gave here, which is purchasers, add to carts, and visitors. You can, break this down for anyone that you're targeting that has any sort of ability to capture that same thing within Klaviyo. The M4 method has arrived. In this video, I'm going to be giving you a full systematic overview. We're specifically going to be focused on a structural overview. And then in the next upcoming 3 to 5 videos, you're going to see breakdowns of each individual campaign type, going through settings on the campaign, ad set, and ad level. This is just meant to give you that breadth so you actually understand what I'm talking about and how the whole system works together. I'm going to start with actually explaining what the M3 system used to be and how M4 is different. And then I'm just going to show you very simply exactly how the M4 system works. So starting us off here on the left-hand side, we have the M3 system. Don't worry, I'm going to zoom in. The M3 system's core was built around a prospecting CBO campaign. Each of these prospecting campaign ad sets were individual broad packs, and you would launch your creative, as we see here, in each pack. So every time you'd launch new creative, it would go into a new pack. And the core of the system revolved around a scaling mechanism. In short, you would launch new creatives. When those creatives were successful, they would become winners. Those winning creatives, as I'll just mark for us so we can clearly see everything, those winning creatives would then be graduated into a scaling campaign. Now, the scaling campaign at its core was fundamentally very, very important during the ASC era, basically pre-Andromeda. The scaling campaign was a great way to get more dedicated spend to the best performing ads. The scaling campaign is no longer needed, although it is optional. We'll break that down in a moment. The other two parts of this structure were focused on retargeting and retention. What we like to do is create clear swim lanes in the account. So what that generally means, increase my thing here. So what that generally has meant is we would historically have new customers up here, engaged customers here, and existing customers here. Now, I'm not trying to overwhelm you in the start of this, but you just need to understand that this has shifted. Andromeda has changed everything. The algorithm is 100% different than it used to be. And because of that, after months of testing over 100 plus brands, we have shifted our approach structurally and strategically. Those are two separate things. We're going to hit the structure side of that right now. So the key difference here is this looks a whole lot different. There are more optional positions in this strategy. Yes, this is more complicated. Yes, this is not cookie cutter like it used to be. But the thing that this is more important than anything else is it's most effective right now. Now, I've mentioned many, many times before that everything in this Skool community will always be updated based on the actual data that I have, based on the 100 plus accounts that we work with at the Moonlighters. So know if you're watching this is legitimately what we are doing and what's working the best right now to scale 6, 7, and 8-figure businesses. I'm going to start with the core function of the M4 method. So everything on my screen moving forward is all M4, and I'm just going to explain again the structural overview of it, and then we're going to get into, in upcoming videos, individual settings. Don't skip this because this is going to be very important to actually understand how it all works. The core of this system is our prospecting CBO, still, just like it's always been. The prospecting CBO is basically undefeated. The importance of this really starts here in our prospecting campaign. Our prospecting campaign is a CBO-based campaign because we allow Facebook to decide where to put the budget. The key here that's changed is that we now have different controls that we add at the ad set and the ad level. So starting from the top, prospecting CBO is the core. Within the prospecting CBO, each piece here is a new ad set. Every single ad set that we launch is generally a broad ad set. And when we launch new ad sets to our existing campaign, we set 7-day minimum budgets. The reason we set 7-day minimum budgets is very simple. We want every single ad to get tested, but we don't want to waste a huge portion of our spend, like in an ABO setup or a manual testing setup. 7-day minimums just set a bare minimum, usually equal to one time your CPA. So 1x CPA is typically what we like to set on on each broad pack for only 7 days. Truly only 7 days. If you go beyond 7 days, you're creating cost centers in your business. Every time you launch new creative, you launch a new pack. The second part of this system is similar to that graduation system we used to do, which is the interest part of this system. So we're going to focus on one interest pack right here. Interest packs only test interest, which means all other variables need to be the same. So to create and test any interest, what we're doing is we're taking the best performing ads in the account and we're launching them into an interest group. And you can see right here, winners are launched right here. So we have an interest group stacked with winners, and that interest is typically set as a single interest group. Don't worry, we're going to get into exactly how this works. I'm just giving you the overview right now. In addition, the biggest difference with Andromeda is how creative reacts in this algorithm. The system is completely different. The way that creative now reacts is based on avatars and concepts. There is all this training packed in upcoming modules. Don't worry, you'll get to it. What you need to do now, which is completely different than what we used to do, is we group creatives by avatar. And then if avatar is already grouped together, then by concept. So it's a hierarchy, avatar first, then concept. We are generally launching 4 to 8 creatives per pack. But as you can see from my example here, if you only have 2, it's okay. Quality trumps quantity. Okay, I'm going to pull us back a little bit. The next thing you're going to notice is the scale campaign. The scale campaign is fully optional. It used to be something that we would do all the time. It was completely mandatory. It's now fully optional. The only time we're using a scale campaign now is when we have ads that need to get a huge amount of spend, like extreme short bursts of scale that needs to happen, or if they're just particular ads that you want to break out from the norm. So you would run 2 duplicates of it. You would run one in your prospecting CBO and you run the other in your scale campaign. The scale campaign is not magical. It never was, but it's really not magical anymore. It's not going to boost your ROAS. It's not going to boost performance. All it's going to do is dedicate spend to specific ads. If you feel like you have an ad based on the data that should get a whole lot of spend, but you don't want to implement a ton of manual controls in your prospecting CBO, you want the algorithm to breathe properly, then you graduate it into a scale campaign and you have 2 duplicates running at the same time. The next is the retention side. Now you're going to notice retargeting is optional. We'll get to that in a second. The retention side is mandatory. This is where you're separating your existing customers from your new customers. The retention side is simple. It's all-time purchasers and 180-day purchasers. Like I said, we're going to go through these exact settings soon. The retargeting side is now optional. So we now run on what I call a very, very different, like kill switch kind of a setup. We set up all of our accounts with this right here, prospecting and retention. That's the core. What this does for us, which is so critically important, is it shows us that everything here is new customer acquisition and everything here is existing customer. We found through our data that actually running prospecting without excluding or specifically breaking apart retargeting tends to work better than breaking out retargeting on its own. However, you need to then look at the data in your ad account using your audience breakdowns and understand if you should have a retargeting campaign or not. I know this sounds confusing at first, but the core is here, prospecting and retention. Once you set that up, you look at your prospecting audience breakdowns. And if you are overspending on engaged customers, if you are overspending on those that would normally be in retargeting, then you exclude and you break it out. This is the and or statement for retargeting. Retargeting, when we set it up, only when prospecting is overspending on engaged audiences. What we generally like to set up are 30-day site visitors, 90-day add to cart or initiate checkout, and then 14-day Facebook and Instagram engagers. Note that you could absolutely just set up one of these. If you have a big social following, don't be afraid to just set up Facebook and Instagram engagers and leave the site visitors and add to carts completely for the prospecting campaign. This is very normal and very fine. There's a reason this is optional, and there's a reason our core actually is more simple. When you look at this from the outside looking in and you just say, all we need is a prospecting and retention campaign, it feels very simple. Where this gets hyper complicated is avatars and concepts being the hierarchy of what gets grouped together, the minimum ad budget management, and then actually what to scale within the prospecting CBO, which is a very competitive environment. The last note that I'm going to bring here, which is probably the most important note philosophically, if that's the right word to use, is that we want to create a hyper competitive environment within our ad account. That is why we don't break everything out. That's why we don't have ABO everywhere. That's why we don't set too many manual budgets. A hyper competitive environment is one of which the best ads rise to the top. If creative number 5 in broad pack number 97 is the best ad, Facebook is going to shoot that ad to the top of your account, and it's going to spend the most amount of money on it. It's going to drive the most volume for your brand. That is why a hyper competitive environment is more important than a selective or manual environment. So again, just to cap off here, this is just the overview. We're going to go through each one of these. I'm going to explain how and when to use the optional campaigns and how to properly set up the prospecting and the retargeting campaigns. Welcome to the very start of the M4 method. I believe this is going to be the structure that takes the most amount of brands. In this video, we are going to be building the prospecting CBO campaign together, step by step. This is the core of your entire account. I'm going to start with a very quick overview of what's basically happening here, just so we're all on the same page for what we're actually going to build. I know I've gone through this in the overview section already that you probably just watched, but it's very important we understand the complexities of what's about to go down. So first off, this is a CBO-based campaign. Don't mind my crappy writing here. In the CBO prospecting campaign, we want hyper competitiveness across all of the ad sets. Now, the reason and the way that we create hyper competitiveness is that we launch new ad sets every time we have a new round of creative ready to go. A round of creative is grouped by avatar and concept, which we can see right here. In addition to launching these as new packs or ad sets, we're setting 7-day minimum budgets for every single new launch that we do. And we're generally launching these to broad audiences. We're allowing our pixel to decide where to actually spend money because interest-based targeting is just suggestions at this point. That said, we also take our best performing creatives. So let's say creative number 5 was a winner. And we're duplicating our winners into interest groups. This allows us to potentially expand our pixel with interest groups by finding adjacent interests that the pixel was not formally understanding or targeting. This system is actually simple once you get the rhythm. It's a little tricky at first, but once you start getting new packs in, you let the system breathe a little bit, your winning ads rise to the top. Your crappy ads get very little spend, which is going to save you a whole lot of money long term. And as I've said many times, this is literally what we do for all the brands that we work with. And it does not matter your category. Lead gen, ecom, who cares? It doesn't matter. This is what I do for my own ads and the 100+ businesses that we work with. So without further ado, let's jump into my dummy account here. Please note, as I go through this, there's going to be random warnings that pop up, changes. It's because this is a blank account. It's a dummy account. It's a completely fake account just to protect client information. What we're doing to start first is we're clicking create and we are choosing a sales-based campaign. Clicking continue here and starting at the very top. We are not touching buying type. We're not touching campaign objective because we just said it. We're keeping campaign spending limit as none added. We are not selecting Advantage Plus catalog. We're setting our budget to be a campaign budget. I'm just going to make a assumption here that we're spending $1,000 per day. If you're spending $200 per day, you're spending $100 per day. This is completely fine. Our campaign bid strategy is going to be highest volume. You can note here that you'll have the option to run cost caps, bid caps, etc. We're setting up highest volume. This is the core of our account. We're not cost capping it anytime soon. Next, in our audience segment reporting, we're going to want to have our engaged and existing customers set up. That's going to come soon. You actually don't need to set it up in this moment. Just get it done really, really soon, which is in upcoming modules. If you are in a special ads category, select it. If you are not in a special ads category, do not select anything. We're going to then move to our ad set here. Oh, and I just forgot. Let's name our campaign. Let's be smart here. Let's name our campaign Prospecting CBO. We're then going to go to our ad set. Now, at the ad set level, first thing I'm going to do again is I'm going to name this, and I'm going to call this broad_pack 1. But this time around, I'm actually going to name this by the concept. So instead of just saying broad_pack 1, what would be a little bit wiser here is to say my avatar _ concept _ pack 1. You could also throw a broad in at the beginning. Don't worry too much about your naming conventions, but make sure you can identify the core elements of the ad set. So in this case, it's a broad audience attacking X avatar on X concept, and it is pack number 1 overall. You can even get rid of pack names if you want to. You can even get rid of broad if everything's running broad. Just make sure you have the avatar and the concept locked in. Next piece is our conversion location. I always like to set single conversion locations. It's going to give you a warning when you do this, setting up my website conversion location. Your performance goal, you're going to have 2 options: maximize number of conversions or maximize value of conversions. If you are just starting out, number of conversions is absolutely going to be the way to go. If you have a whole lot of data, then likely value of conversions is going to be a better move. However, if you're successfully already running number of conversions, continue to run number of conversions. I have a module on this in the deep dive sections that clearly breaks down whether you should be running number or value. Note for here, this decision isn't going to make or break you. This is just going to be a decision that you need to make based on your specific business, based on how many products you have, the disparity of those products, and a few other factors. In this case, I'm actually going to go with just number of conversions. Next, make sure you set your data set properly, and then click your conversion event. As I mentioned, this is dummy data, so everything's going to show up completely wrong here. Your conversion event is always purchase. There is no case where we are running anything but purchase. Cost per result goal, not touching this for now. Value rules, not enabled. Attribution model is going to be standard. And you always want to set 7-day click, 1-day engage, 1-day view. You might see this starting in August 2025. We're introducing new updates. Doesn't matter. Set all of the possible attribution up, which is 7-day click, 1-day engage, 1-day view. Conversion count, all conversions, not just first conversion, all conversions. If someone comes by and buys again and again, all conversions are set. For budget and strategy, if this is your first pack, we're not setting an ad set spending limit. So I'm not going to set it here. But note, we're going to create pack number 2 in just a few minutes. Everything else here in the budget section stays blank. For our audience, this is where things get very important. We are setting exclusions on this section right here. So we're keeping our minimum age as is. We're not touching that. Exclude these custom audiences. And here we are excluding whatever we put in the retention campaign that we're going to set in a few moments. That's the next module after this. So in these exclusions, just simply put, the most important thing you're going to exclude is anyone who's purchased over all time. Now, again, dummy data here, so I don't have any custom audiences to build, but this is going to be purchasers, 180 days. And then you're going to create a second audience, and it's going to be all-time purchasers. This is going to be imported from your CRM. The 180-day purchasers from your pixel is the most important. Excluding purchasers here is what creates our swim lane. Let me explain this quickly. So our swim lane, clean up here so we all could clearly see this. Our swim lane is a very, very important thing that we need to set up in our account. If we do not exclude, then we mismatch everything. We hit engaged customers, we hit new customers, and we hit existing customers. The point of Facebook ads is to scale your new customers as much as possible, not to smash your existing customers. Yes, you could do that, which we're going to do on retention, but you could also do that with email, SMS, and other plays. Prospecting is meant to spend on new customer acquisition. So we need to exclude all-time purchasers and 180-day purchasers from prospecting. The importance of this is very simple. When you go to spend more money into your new prospecting campaign, you need to make sure it's actually going to new customers. Back to our ad account here. We set up our exclusions. Don't mind mine saying none. Yours should not say none. For your languages, important, set your languages actually to what your real ads can target. Don't go all languages. So in my case, if I'm just targeting people who can speak English because my website's in English, my ads are in English, and everything I do is in English, and I don't know any other languages, then yes, set everything for English. Next piece here, audience suggestion. Leave it blank. Don't touch it. We are allowing Facebook to go broad. In past, I've talked a lot about further limit the reach of your ads. That's only going to happen on the retention side now. Facebook has changed. Advantage Plus on is fine. Your audience size at this point should be gigantic. It should be a massive number, hundreds of millions of people, depending on what countries you're targeting. Ad transparency is not going to apply in the US. It's going to apply in some other places. So make sure you set this properly. Take your time here. And then when we go to our placements. So when it comes to placements, by default, all 23 placements are included. We are going to start with all 23 placements included. In further deep dives, once you're spending a lot, you're then going to cut some placements only where the data proves clear. For now, don't get ahead of yourself. Don't try to get a 3 to 5% gain when in reality, you need to set up to be as maximum as possible to allow the algorithm to breathe in the early days, or if you're just setting up a new system. Literally, it doesn't matter if you're spending $100,000 a day or if you're spending $10 a day. If you try to cut too early, it's going to hurt. This is a new system for your account. Let it breathe. Before I get to ads, we're going to go through what to do when you launch pack number 2. Whether it's pack number 2 or pack number 35, this is how I follow. For this, broad avatar concept pack 3, or I'm going to say pack 35, just for this example. We could all visualize the fact that once we have pack number 1, number 2, number 3, and so on, things are going to change. Every single setting is exactly the same. The only difference here is in our ad set spending limit. We're going down to the budget and schedule section. We're clicking ad set spending limits. We're setting a minimum budget. We're using dollar value. And we're setting our average daily minimum equal to 1 time our target CPA. If your target CPA is $100 and your whole budget is $100, you can't set one. Be very careful. General rule of thumb, how much you're spending compared to how much you're setting here should never be greater than 20%. Okay. General rule of thumb, it's not perfect, but if you're going to put a minimum budget in here, at no point should that budget be greater than 20% of your total budget. So if you spend $1,000, no reason this should be ever greater than $200. But the core rule is it's 1 time your target CPA. So if I had a CPA target of $50, I'm setting this to $50. If my budget was only $100 total, I can't set this to $50, so I have to bring it down to 20. Okay, let's go into the ad level. When it comes to the ad level here, the couple of basic changes that we're making aren't too complex, to be completely honest. And the ad level has so many different settings. They're going to change so rapidly. To be honest, most of these can be ignored. If you see a new shiny object, don't click it. we're going to let you know when that new shiny object is actually viable to use. Don't start wasting your money. Let us waste our money, and then we'll tell you about it. Creating of ads, generally speaking, we're using manual upload. And in this case, you could either use single image or video or carousel, whatever ad type you're creating. We are not using flexible ads, and we are not using collection ads. Flexible ads were a thing that worked for about 2 months. They don't work right now. Don't use them. Generally speaking, we are unselecting multi-advertiser ads. They're not worth it. Don't select. For our destination website, enter your website URL. I like to include a display link to make sure that it's as relevant as possible to my ad. But if you're just sending to your homepage, you might not need to. The next piece here is personalized destinations. Now, these have changed quite a few times. Optimized website destination is something that I do like to select. I'm comfortable with this. This is going to allow Facebook to actually send the traffic to the page that they think is most relevant. If you're running a complex shop and you're targeting a very specific product, don't set this. This is a toggle you have to decide for. Shop is going to be possible. I don't have shop connected to this account, but possible for you if you have a Facebook shop. Generally speaking, we are not using Facebook shops anymore, but it's an option. Next is browser add-ons. So people will see websites when they tap on your ad. You can add an additional contact method in your browser to help people connect with you. So browser add-ons are going to be things like call, WhatsApp, and instant form. A little bit more helpful on the lead gen side, not critical on the e-com side. Again, you're making a decision based on your business. If you're an e-com business that's very high ticket, we work with a business that sells $2,000 products. They get about 30% of their sales from phone calls. So we have these browser add-ons enabled. Moving down here, where did I go? All right, ad creative. So when it comes to actually building ad creative, this is not too complicated. First, we're going to click Set up Ad Creative. The differences I'm going to go through will not matter if you're using an image or a video. When you click on image here, the first piece is going to be your extensions. Sorry, I keep pausing the video because my dog is wanting to play. And right after this, we're going to go in the yard. But anyway, for now, when it comes to extensions, promotions is up to you. We have seen this be helpful when we include our promo codes here, and you could automatically source your codes if you're using Shopify. You could manually select your codes if you're not using Shopify. Either way, promo codes can be helpful. Next is branding. I don't touch this. I literally don't touch this. The only thing I do sometimes with branding is I put restricted words in here, but 90% of the time I just let it be. Site links are helpful. Enter your site links. Turn this on. Click Manage Site Links, add site links, and add at least 4 site links. Put your best sellers, for sure, your new arrivals, and then 2 other collections that you think are most important. If you have a hero product and that's all you sell, make sure that's one of the site links. Put your FAQs in there, put your VSL in there, whatever is applicable to your business. Your core 4 goes in your site links. It works, it's helpful. Next is products. I like to set my products up as of now. If you're an e-commerce business, generally speaking, adding products to your ad creates your top of funnel ads to drive more value and your bottom of funnel ads to drive more value. So AKA, we drive more value when we select products. So in this case, select your catalog and then make sure your products are allowed to be used as long as it's relevant. Everything I'm saying here should be case by case. Keep it at that. When we click next, we're into media. Now, this is my boring logo here. So we're just going to use this as the example. When it comes to media, in all cases, make sure you build for the square and the vertical crop. You will notice that square has changed in the last couple of months. 4x5 used to be the standard instead of square. It used to be a little bit different. We don't want to use 4x5s anymore. We're using 1x1s and 9x16s. So you want to make sure, yes, I'm giving you a terrible example here, but you want to make sure you actually have 9x16 set up and the crops are good. I check this for every single ad. And then for horizontal, I don't care if I just use the square placement like I'm using right here. But if you happen to have a horizontal image of the ad, sure, put the 1.91 by 1. Not a problem. Just to be clear, square and vertical are super important because that's where the placements go with 99% of the spend. Okay. Primary text and headlines. When it comes to primary text, at bare minimum, we set 2 different primary text. You could set 5 if you want to, but I generally like to set 2. Make them unique. Don't try to create little nuances thinking it's going to make the biggest difference. Primary text should be totally unique every time you launch one. Headlines, the same. 2 or so headlines are fine. Generally, these should be very different. Facebook is going to use these options to then determine which works the best. If these are not different, the data is going to be muddy. You're not going to really have any action for it. And little nuances in how these are set up will not help. So a great example of something that would be very different is one that's very long, one that's very short, one that's very problem solution oriented, one that's more high level. Anyway, moving on. Descriptions. We generally don't set descriptions anymore. We just leave this blank. It's totally optional. You can if you want. It's a good thing to put in like plus get free shipping, like little things like that. Call to action. I go both ways on this. I'll be honest with everyone here. Learn more is great for higher ticket. Shop now is better to get people to buy. Those are generally the 2 best options. But if you are running anything else, just use the call to action that's most relevant for your business. We're then going to click next. For image generation, I don't even look at this. It's gotten a little bit better, but generally, I don't even look at this. I don't even know what this is generating for me right now. We're going to go next to enhancements. These change all the time. Like every week, these change. So walk through them yourself, but I'll give you some base guidelines. Anything that is cropping, modifying, or adjusting my images or videos, I don't select. Just about everything else I'm comfortable with. For example, show summaries, that's a yes. Visual touch-ups, absolutely not. Text improvements, yes. Add animations, absolutely not. Add product tags, yes. Reveal details over time, yes. Add music, debatable, but I will select it. Flex media, no. Flex media, my dog's looking at me because I'm saying no too much. Flex media is going to allow Facebook to show media for specific aspect ratios, aka crop your images. That's a no. Text add overlays on. Literally, these are different than ones I saw this morning when I was launching different ads. So they're going to be different for you. Just use that rule of thumb. Okay. Moving down on our ad creative here, there's 2 format display options currently available. Again, these are going to change: carousel and collection. Now, if we add carousel here, what this is going to do, it's going to take the site links that we generated, which you won't be able to see, and it's going to put them under the ad. I don't care. We could do this sometimes. We don't have clear data as to whether or not this works better or worse. Just enabling your products in your catalog earlier are going to allow Facebook to do this anyway, but for now, we're not going to select it. Moving down just a little bit further, the creative testing module here is something we never use. This is not going to be functional because we're using a prospecting CPO system that functionally does our creative testing without wasting a bunch of money. I'm saving you thousands of dollars long-term in this system. Tracking. Make sure your website events are selected. If you have offline events, set them. URL parameters. Generally speaking, click the build URL parameter and use the campaign name or campaign ID in your source. Excuse me, that's the wrong one. Use the source as either site source name, or you could just say something like paid social. The campaign medium is generally going to be the placement. The campaign name is going to be the campaign name, and the campaign content is going to be the ad name. It's going to show you everything you need. There's one alternate option here. You could set the campaign medium instead of to placement. You could set the campaign medium to ad set name, which in your case is going to show the avatar and the concept, which is going to be very helpful as well. Again, these are not requirements. They're just going to help you long term if you're looking at things like Google Analytics, Triple Whale, or any other third-party tracking software. That is the broad side of the prospecting CBO system. We're now going to get into the interest groups. This is going to be very quick. For our interest groups, we create a new ad set here, and we're going to call this interest, whatever the interest is, interest name, winners. This is only going to have winning ads. The only thing we're doing here, this is very, very simple, is we're going down to our audience section. We're clicking further limit the reach of our ads. We're going to click further limit the reach again. We're going to go to detailed targeting, and we're going to select the single interest that we think is adjacent to our business. I give this example a lot. If I was Nike, I would not put Reebok. I would not put Under Armour. I would not put Adidas. Those are information or brands that our pixel is already fully aware of. We don't care about those. What we care about is what's adjacent to it so that we could expand our audience. So for example, if I was Nike, I might type in something like Range Rover, because Range Rover is high in terms of market. It's not aspirational. I'm not typing in Ferrari because every kid in the world wants a Ferrari. Instead, it's aspirational. It sends the signal, at least, or the cohort of the audience would be people who are generally wealthy, which could be a good fit for Nike's top lines, right? So we're not going Reebok, we're not going Adidas, we're going once removed. What's a cohort that we can try? Don't just use Range Rover for yourself. This is just one of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of interests that can apply to your business. Go once removed. After that, all we're doing in this interest group is we're just launching our winning ads. So winner number one, winner number two, and so on. As a very important reminder, you are not pausing the ads in the other places. You are just creating duplicates. You're going to have duplicates of the same ads running. It doesn't matter. Wow, that was a lot. That is our prospecting. In this video, we're breaking down our retargeting campaign setup. I'm going to start with about 30 seconds right here. I'm going to show you specifically when to use retargeting because it is now optional. And then I'm going to show you how to set it up. So let's do it. First off, the retargeting structure is now optional because we have found it to be more successful by merging in the prospecting campaign. This is specifically a post-Andromeda 2026 into 2027 fundamental that we've established. We've tested this across over 100 brands at this point, and it works very well. Retargeting, though, still sometimes need to be broken out. Let me explain. First off, what's in our retargeting setup when we break it out? Every single ad set here is optional. So we don't necessarily always include each of these ad sets. And sometimes there's more ad sets that get added. It's just clearly breaking new from engaged from existing. So I'm going to start by showing an example of when clearly we need to break things out. This is an account that we now manage. We've just made the swap, but I'm looking at the previous month before things were, done right, we'll say. In this case, you can very clearly see here that we have new audience, existing customers, and engaged customers. Each of these is done and broken down through our audience segments, which everyone can set up. Now, when we look at this from a perspective of what is actually working and where is the money going, we're going to notice very quickly that we need to be breaking out retargeting. For example, we've spent a total of, let's call it $7,000 on this total campaign. $2,700 of those dollars were on new audience, $800 on existing, and $3,300 on engaged audiences. Facebook is pushing way too much money to engaged audiences. Now, you might say, well, maybe that's because where the money is. That is exactly the point of why we don't break it out too often. But when I see 50% of my total ad spend going to engaged audiences,
a red flag goes off or an alarm goes off in my head. And then I want to investigate a little bit further. And when I start to investigate, I notice a few things. First, my frequency on these are very high. So I notice my engaged audience frequency is 12. This means the average person in the last month saw my ads for engaged 12 times. Existing saw 30, but we know that in our new setup, we break this out. Keep in mind, this is before we implemented things. This is a broken account that's now fixed. Furthermore, if we start to look at our compare attribution and click incremental attribution, we're going to see a mega drop off in engaged. We could see really clearly here that engaged audiences drop from a 6.9, nearly a 7 ROAS, down to a 4.5. That's because a lot of these people would have converted without these ads. We do not need to target them as aggressively. So there's no perfect exactly this amount, exactly this frequency, or exactly this amount of spend. But when you start to notice that your total ad spend is starting to favor engaged, like 20%, 30%, 40%, 50%, you start to need to draw red flags. And then you can potentially break out your retargeting audiences to be separate. So instead of the structure which we've been going through, which is prospecting and then retention, you would create a third swim lane. You would have new, existing, and engaged. And if you are familiar at all with the original M3 method, then this looks super familiar. In fact, it's exactly what we used to do. It's it's prospecting with new, it's retargeting in the center, which is engaged customers, and it's retention with existing customers. This just looks a little different because the order is different and because retargeting is now optional. So let's build it. Going back into our ad account that we've been working on and building here, we're going to create a new campaign, a sales campaign. We're going to create a retargeting campaign. We're using campaign budget in most cases here. And we're going to set our daily budget according to under what we're currently overspending on. So in the example I gave you, they were spending $3,000 on engaged over the course of a month. That would be roughly $100 per day. I don't want to spend that much. So in this case, I'm just going to temper it down to $70 a day. Just literally using the data we have simply in our ad account. Notice how I'm not trying to put some scientific formula together for this budget, because once it starts to spend, a couple of days are going to go by and then I'm going to make adjustments from there. All of our audience segments are set up just like they have been in the last two videos that we went through in our setup. The ad set name that we're going to start with is website visitors 30 days. Conversion location is going to be the same as always, website, maximize number of conversions, and we are going to build the event as a purchase event as always. Attribution model stays standard. Attribution setting, 7-day click, 1-day engage, 1-day view. No ad set spending limit. Down to our audience, we are changing this to further limit the reach of our ads. We're then selecting custom audience here, and we're inserting our website visitors last 30 days. So all site visitors, 30 days. I'm going to call this visitors 30 days, create audience. Now we're clearly targeting our visitors in the last 30 days. We need to add an exclusion. This is going to be anyone who's purchased over all time because we want these swim lanes to exist. We're then going to unselect, use as a suggestion. Our audience definition is going to get very, very narrow. I'm just going to delete this ad here so I can make things copy and pasted quickly for the next part of this. Next part of this is initiate checkout. We're going to duplicate. We're going to change website visitors 30 days to add to cart / initiate checkout ATC / IC 90 days. Keep in mind, no matter what your business is, there's some version of this, whether it's add to carts, whether it's leads, whether it's qualified leads, like there's some version of this. Next piece here, we're going down because everything is duplicated, it's staying exactly the same. We are switching our website visitors to our add to cart. So we're going to create a new audience, custom audience, website, new. We're going to change this of course, to the actual add to cart event. Make sure you do that. We're going to change this to add to cart, 90 days, create the audience. We're then going to do another thing. We're going to create a new custom audience website again. We're going to then change this again to initiate checkout. So you're going to have to change this. I'm using dummy data as usual, so I cannot change this event. We're going to change this to initiate checkout 90 days. Create audience. Then we have to do two more things. We're going to unselect the visitors 30 days, but we're not excluding it. We're just unselecting it. Then we're going to go back to our website visitors 30-day audience here. And we're going to exclude add to cart and initiate checkout. Now we have a hierarchy of these two ad sets. These are the two most important ones when it comes to retargeting. We have 30-day site visitors, which is just anyone who's visited the site, hasn't purchased, hasn't added to cart, hasn't initiated checkout. Then we have add to cart 90 days, which is going to be anyone who's added to cart or initiated checkout, but hasn't purchased. It's a very clear, easy distinction. Now, entering our next ad set here, which is also optional. This is going to be our engagers, 14 days. There's another module in the curriculum, in the classroom on this. You're going to see in just a few moments here when you get through the core setup. That could help you determine if you need to use this and exactly how to use it. Basically, engagers, 14 days. This is totally optional and really is only for brands that have pretty big social followings. Like if you have like 100,000 followers, 50,000 followers, etc., and you get a lot of views, this is what you would do. This is what I would do. You're going to audiences again here. We are excluding website visitors. We're excluding add to cart. We're excluding initiate checkout. We're clicking create new custom audience. We're going to go to Instagram account or Facebook page. You can do both of these. Click next, select your source, change this audience retention to the last 14 days and click create audience. I'm not going to do this because this is a dummy account here. That will then include the 14-day Instagram engagers, and you're going to do the exact same thing, custom audience, Facebook page, next, and then change Facebook page to last 14 days and click create audience. You want to see here your 14-day Facebook page and Instagram engagers all in one. Other than that, pretty smooth. Your audience definition is going to be narrow. That's what's to be expected. If you have other audiences you think you should be retargeting because they're being over-targeted in prospecting, go ahead and add them here and make sure at all times you are excluding these audiences from prospecting, which is the next big step. So once we've established only if we are using the retargeting campaign because we are overspending on prospecting, the next thing we need to do is we need to take all of these retargeting inclusions and exclude them from prospecting. So, for example, I would take my website 30-day site visitors. We're going to go to our prospecting CBO. We're going to go into our ad set here, which has all our proper exclusions. And click show more controls, exclude these audiences. We're already excluding our purchasers because that's how we create our swim lanes. Now we're going to exclude our initiate checkouts, our add to cart, and we're going to exclude our site visitors. This is virtually going to eliminate any use of engaged audience or any use of what we saw here where we were overspending on engaged audiences, and it's going to shift that to the retargeting campaign. So now we have clear, new, existing, and engaged audiences. We know for a fact when we spend more money on new, it's going to focus on new acquisition. When we spend more money on engaged, it's going to engage. When we spend more money on existing or retention, it's going to existing customers. In all of these cases, because retargeting is optional, you're going to have to play with your frequencies and your spend to make sure you're actually spending the right amounts to these audiences. In this video, we're going to be building your retention campaign. Your retention campaign is the division that separates your new from your existing customers. This is going to be a critical foundational campaign that basically every single account should have. What we're going to do here is I'm going to go through a very quick overview, about 1 minute, and then we're going to go into the actual build with the exclusions, everything you need to know. You should have already watched the overview of the M4 system and the prospecting setup, then move on to this video right here. If you haven't, go back. Let's start at what the point of this campaign really is. So when it comes to building your retention campaign, essentially the point of the retention campaign is to separate what is new customers, which are up here, from existing customers, which are down here. This is going to allow you to control your spend and make sure Facebook doesn't overspend on your existing customers, which it does all the time. Facebook, without this setup, is going to drill your existing customers to the dirt. It's going to hurt a lot, and you're going to waste a lot of money on existing customer spend. It's usually not necessary. So to build this properly, what we're going to be doing is creating a separate campaign. We're going to be focusing on all-time purchasers and 180-day purchasers, and then I'm going to go through what to actually pack in to this campaign in terms of the ad creative. So let's do it. Right where we left off before, instead of having our prospecting CBO, we're creating a new campaign. We're creating a sales campaign. Click continue. We're going to be calling this retention. You can call this existing, retention, loyalty. People call it all sorts of different things. Retention just means retaining your existing customers. Buying type is auction. Campaign sales objective is sales. Campaign budget is going to be set. Daily budget here. Roughly speaking, this is going to be managed on a frequency. To keep our lives very simple, you generally don't want this to be more than 10% of your prospecting budget. So in this case, we're going to set it to $100 because we're assuming our prospecting side is $1,000. This is not law. You can go less or more. This is generally just going to be a very small campaign. You're going to manage the frequency and the reach. We'll get into that in a few minutes. Your audience segment reporting, this is automatically going to be set up already. And we're going to move on to our ad set. Now, for our ad set, the first one is going to be purchased _ 180 days. Our conversion location is going to be website. Our conversion event, of course, is going to be purchase. There is no other event we use. Whatever the event we actually want from Facebook. If you're lead gen, you do leads. If you're purchase, you do purchase. That's the actual event we always choose. Never any discussion on that. Attribution model is standard, 7-day click, 1-day engage, 1-day view. Count all conversions. We're then going to move to our audience, which is basically going to be the most important part of this. There's nothing that's going to happen on the budget side that stays blank. The audience, we're going to click further limit the reach of your ads. We're going to click further limit the reach again and click continue. From here, everything is going to be open. If you're in multiple countries, select those countries. You're going to click custom audiences. And here we're going to enter, again, this is a dummy account just like it was before. We're going to enter 180-day purchasers. This is going to be anyone who's purchased from your business in the last 180 days. To create this audience, we're going to custom audience, website. You're selecting your actual event. So again, dummy data here. You're going to put in your purchase event, 180 days, and name this 180-day purchasers. And then it will show up right here as an inclusion, not an exclusion. Next, all detail targeting is on. And then for languages, select your correct languages, just like we've done before. So if I'm just targeting English, then I'm targeting my 3 English languages, and do anything else that your ads actually apply to. Generally speaking, it's going to be one language because you can't write ads in multiple languages. Placements, we want to be everywhere on our retention campaign. Everywhere, all the time. This is basically retargeting the same people. Next, we're going to quickly duplicate, and we're going to change purchase 180 to purchase all time. This is, again, not too complicated here. We're skipping everything and going down to the audience section again. At this point, you're going to see your 180-day purchasers as an inclusion, and we're going to exclude it instead. So let me just be very, very clear here because I don't have real info here. I'm going to build something together for us. If we had website data, this would be website data over the last 30 days. We're just going to say, pretend this is purchasers 180. We're going to create this audience. This is what you will have in here already. We're going to click exclusion here. And then we're going to create our all-time purchase list, which you're going to have to do from your customer list. This could generally be imported manually from your CRM, or if you have Klaviyo, pushing the audience from Klaviyo. We have a tutorial on that, just a few down, on how to exactly set up the Klaviyo integration if you're using that, or whatever CRM you're using. For this example, just because we're using dummy data here, we're going to put purchasers all time, create the audience. Do not worry about what I had in those settings. Again, for the 100th time, this is false data. This is just a blank account. In this case, we want to exclude the 180-day purchase and remove it from here. So this should look like purchase all time, included, excluding purchase 180, and we're going to unselect use as a suggestion. You should see your audience definition here on the right-hand side become very low. It should be very narrow. It should get into the red or the yellow, depending on how big your business is. This is just capturing everyone who's ever purchased from you over all time. I'll give you some alternate options here, depending on where you are in your business journey. If you're a business that is a subscription business, then you do not want to ever target anyone who's subscribed to your business. Instead, you want to exclude subscribers from everything. And what you might do instead is target churned users. Another thing here is if you're just starting out, you might not have a lot of information. So it's completely okay, totally acceptable to merge both of these ad sets, as long as we're targeting anyone who's purchased over all time and excluding these from our prospecting. So just like I mentioned in the prospecting, once you've built these ad sets, the next thing to do is to go into your prospecting campaign, just like here, go into your ad sets and make sure, double check that all of your exclusions are excluded. To do that, you go to more controls, exclude, and we're excluding our purchasers in each of the ad sets of our prospecting campaign. Every single one in prospecting is excluded. Clear swim lanes are established. The next piece here on the retention side is what ads do we include? So there's fundamentally going to be no difference in the ad setup from what we just walked through on the prospecting side. That's all the same, except there's a big difference in what ads you can actually include here. First, catalog ads do fantastically well on retention and retargeting. I have a breakdown of this in another separate module because it is a little advanced, like 10 to 15 minutes. You can see that down below, but we're just building foundations now. What you generally want to launch here are all of your winning ads. Anything that's winning goes into here. Second, any ad that is specifically relevant for retention goes into here. This could be literally anything that's talking to existing customers, anything you think just have a gut feeling will work better for retention, throw it in here. Also, any new arrivals, any sales, any promotions, they all go in here. You should want a variety of ads in your retention campaign. Generally, think about it like this. The person's already purchased from you. Your job is not to hard sell them again and again. Your job is to keep them top of mind so that when they go to buy a different product or sign up for a different program or whatever you sell, that they actually don't go too far in the other direction and don't go to another competitor. They're always reminded that you're here. That's all the retention campaign is meant to do. It's going to drive very high return on ad spend. It's not going to drive volume. You're not going to scale the retention campaign. Okay. Moving on to the next important part about the retention campaign. When you are looking at your analytics of your retention campaign, there's a couple key things you want to pay attention to, specifically your frequency. We have modules coming up. I know I keep saying that, but coming up that are available right now that break down what your frequency should be. The important part on the retention side is you're not focused on ROAS, you're not focused on CPMs, CPCs, you're not even focused on too much revenue here. You're just focused on making sure you're not overspending. That's the core purpose. We don't want to overspend and make this frequency 50. We don't want people to see our ads 50 times a day on average. It's far too much. So, retention side, very simple setup. And don't forget, every business is unique. So if you have different cohorts that you need to break out because you have, some different breakdowns, go ahead. It's just the important factor here that we are simply just breaking out retention from prospecting. Also, setting minimums or maximums on these is also acceptable. Facebook is going to spend more on the bigger audiences when it comes to retention. So don't be afraid to put a $5 minimum budget or something super small on some of these budgets. We have $1 million businesses that have a retention audience that spends $10 a day on a specific ad set. It's not the end of the world, depending on how big or small you are. It's just about making sure everyone gets targeted fairly. So that's it for the retention side. Very simple. I hope this one was very clear, easy to set up. You're excluding your retention audiences from your prospecting, and you're creating a division in swim lane between new customers. The next campaign that we're going to be focusing on is our scale campaign. Now, as you've probably seen already, the scale campaign is now optional. The scale campaign used to be an integral part of the system. It used to be one of the most important campaigns because it served as a space that your best ads can get dedicated spend. The job of the scale campaign is very different now. It's use case by use case. Sometimes you could even run it for a few weeks and pause it. It is just a little part of the Swiss Army knife. It is no longer the core. And because of that, some of the settings and changes are pretty important. First thing we're going to do is just understand, when do we use it? Then I'm going to go into the ads manager and we're going to build a scale campaign so you can see the shell and basically your criteria for what you graduate. First things first, we know our normal setup right now is mostly focused on prospecting and retention with an optional retargeting campaign. I want to be very clear. The optional side of the retargeting campaign is way more important than the optional side of the scale campaign. The scale campaign is highly optional, meaning it should only be used in certain situations. Ideally, you're not using a scale campaign. However, if there are a few factors, which I'll get into, that do warrant using a scale campaign, then this is how you set it up. So first things first, what are those factors? Most of the time when you're running in a prospecting CBO system, the flaws of the system are that only a few ads start to gather more and more social proof, more and more ad spend, more and more revenue. They start to then climb up to the top ranks of your account. This is a feature, not a bug. We don't want to position this ever as something that is a negative thing. This is a very, very positive thing for the account overall. However, the problem that had historically happened over and over is that the bottom ad sets, the newer ones, were not getting any spend at all. They're not getting a fair chance. We solved that with the 7-day minimum budget, which we discussed in the prospecting setup. Now, there's a few things you should be doing before you start a scale campaign. First is, let's say you have an ad that is dominant, an ad that is super, super strong. If that ad is super, super strong, in the prospecting CBO, let's go look at it this way. In the prospecting CBO, let's say it's broad pack one with certain avatar, certain concept that's super, super strong. It is getting 80% of your spend. It's dominant. What you might consider, unless it's killing it in terms of return on ad spend and all your KPIs, what you might consider is actually going down to the ad set spending limits, setting a maximum percentage daily. So the reason the maximum percentage is so valuable here is because the maximum percentage is actually going to allow you to set an upper threshold no matter if you increase or decrease your spend. For example, let's say it's getting 80% of the spend and it's not hitting your target return on ad spend. You don't want to cut it because 80% of your spend that needs to get distributed elsewhere, it's going to kill your account. Instead, what you very likely want to do is just reduce that percentage down. So let's just say we went from 80 to 60. I don't have a hard rule on how exactly to set this, but let's just use some feel here and say we went from 80 to 60. Now, this ad set in particular can only get 60% of the total spend. So if we look at it here, if broad pack number 1 was dominant and we decided to put a 60% max, that means the 20% extra needs to get distributed elsewhere in the broad pack setup or in the CBO setup. Now, let's take it a step further. Let's say we want the opposite to happen. Let's say we have an ad set that is already getting 60% of the budget. Again, this is not exact. Let's just say it's getting a huge amount of the budget. You're spending $100,000. It's getting $40,000 of the spend in one ad set. Numbers don't matter here, just getting a huge amount of the budget. And you want it to spend more. You want to see how far you can push this thing. Maybe it's timely to the season. Maybe it's on sale. Maybe there's something going on. Or maybe just an evergreen asset that's just crushing it. Something that would be a bad thing to do is to set a minimum on that is like pushing it even higher. If it's getting 50% of the spend, I would never set a daily minimum to push it up. What I would do instead in that case, that is when we are going to introduce the scaling campaign. Scaling campaign is now for the hyper best ads in your account. And all we are doing is we are taking that hyper best ad and we are scaling that individual ad by duplicating it into the winning scale campaign. We have 2 instances of that ad running at the same time, and that is all. We are just treating the scale campaign now as a way to push as hard as possible against ads that are already getting a whole lot of spend, and you want to try to force more against them. This is extremely important that you don't cherry pick your ads based on ROAS or based on CPA. You're literally just getting the ads that are spending the most, that are already above your target, that you want to try to spend more against. So to set up that scale campaign, here's how we do it. It is super, super simple. We're going to create a new campaign. We're going to create a sales campaign, of course. We're going to call this scale. We're going to use a campaign budget here, although there's going to be some differences that might happen here, but we're going to say campaign budget for now. All of our audience segment reporting is going to be set up just as we have in the previous videos. And then we're going to go to our ad set. We're going to call this scale again. Our website location is going to be website. We're going to be using our correct data set. We're using the conversion event purchase. As always, no exceptions here. Again, as always, don't mind my errors. This is a dummy account. This is just so I could show you all how to set things up. In this scale campaign, we shouldn't have to set any ad set spending limits. This should just rip. And then for our audience, which is going to matter, so let me do a quick refresh here. There we go. Meta was bugging as usual. For our audience, we are then going to do something really simple. We're going to make sure our audience location is set up properly. And all we have to do is set a exclusion here. Had to refresh Facebook there a second time. And now we can clearly see that I have my audience set up. In the audience setup, set your location, set your minimum age if necessary, and then the exclusions are going to matter a lot here. For your exclusions, you're excluding everything that you have running elsewhere, right? So, for example, you're always running a prospecting and a retention. So the first things that we're going to exclude are our all-time purchasers and 180-day purchasers. Anyone who's purchased from us, we need to exclude specifically from the scale campaign. If we're running retargeting, if we were running all of these audiences, we're going to be excluding these as well. So anything you're targeting elsewhere, you want to exclude from your scale campaign. Now, in this case, my normal recommended setup in 2026 is the prospecting and retention grouped. So because of this, we want to exclude these 2 right here. So going back to our audience setup, we're going to go to our exclusions. We're going to exclude we're going to exclude purchase all time and purchase 180 days. And as I just mentioned, if you are running a retargeting campaign, which is completely fine, then exclude initiate checkout, add to cart, and visitors 30 days. Just like we have right here. Just like we've targeted in the other campaigns if you're running them. We want scale to be exclusive from everything else. Moving down just a little bit here, we're leaving suggest an audience completely untouched, let it rip. And we're using all placements on. That is the easy, simple way that we are using and creating our scale campaign. It is literally.
In this video, we're going to be going over how to transfer your current ad account into our M4 system. I understand this is one of the most asked questions. This is a long overdue video, and I hope everybody gets a ton of value out of this. I'm going to show you real examples because essentially there's a lot of ways that your ad account could look right now. I'm going to go with the most complex setup. This should be even easier to understand if you have a simple account. But what we don't want to happen is we don't want people, or really anyone, you watching this, we don't want you to rip apart your current account and destroy anything that's working. It's the cardinal rule of Facebook ads is to don't touch it if it's actually working. Now, everybody's in here for a reason, and that is to either grow their account or become more efficient, increase ROAS, etc. So what we're going to be showing you today is a real completely broken ad account. This is all going to be anonymized data because this is not a client we work with. And I'm going to show you how I would slowly start to transition this account into the M4 structure. I'm also going to showcase just like some basics of what the structure is, so we're all on 100% the same page. And then I'm going to show you exactly what to go into in the ad account itself. Okay, so there are going to be two key stages to this. The first is going to be focusing entirely on the prospecting setup. The prospecting setup is going to be the core of our account. This is our CBO prospecting campaign with a pack-based system, grouping creatives by avatar and concept. Next, after the prospecting system, we really just need to focus on the potential breakout of scale, the potential breakout of retargeting, and then finally our retention-based campaign. So I'm not going to be editing this account. I'm just going to show you precisely what I would do if this was one of our accounts that we were able to kind of go in and adjust. So let's pop back over to the ads manager and let's take a look. So first things first, we're going to start with the prospecting side. The prospecting side is where we're going to make most of our money. And how we're going to identify this on the prospecting side is we're looking for the number one spending campaign in the account. Now, most campaigns, most accounts are not going to look like this. They're not going to have 20 different ad sets or campaigns. I hope not. But if you do, then stick with me on this. The first most important thing here is going to be figuring out what is spending the most and what is already driving the most similar setup to your prospecting CBO that you're going to create. So in this case, we're just going to take campaign number one here, and we're going to notice this has a bunch of different ad sets within. Now, this is an ABO setup. So right off the bat here, one of the first things we would do is we would adjust this to become a campaign budget. If you cannot actually adjust this to become a campaign budget, then you're going to have to pick a campaign that is on the CBO side. Note how I'm not like, oh my gosh, you have to do it this exact way or anything like that. This is just starting to build your system because we don't want to just start new campaigns, start from scratch and try to compete one system with the other. There's only one way to have a system in an ad account. You can only have one, truly. It's like if you were to use two project management tools at the same time, it just doesn't make sense. So in this case, what we really want to do here is we want to figure out which campaign is going to become our prospecting CBO. Let's just say, again, it's this UGC whitelisting campaign. First, we're going to move this to a CBO system. That is obvious. And, and then all I'm doing from this point forward is I am launching my new ad sets grouped by creative pack inside of this campaign. So if I had literally a new pack, I would just do a duplicate, launch the new pack in with the new round of creative. I am not, just to be clear, we're not pausing a bunch of things down. We're not trying to group and consolidate. Nope. All we're doing is using the shell that we already have. I'm making the assumption that the settings are correct across the campaign as well. You can see and check out all the campaign settings too. But Generally speaking, the easy version of this that we need to understand is we're just taking what's already functioning, we're turning it into the prospecting CBO. Second, we have to figure out what to do with all the rest of this mess here. Now, again, I hope that most people don't have this many active campaigns, but we need to understand what to do with it. So, on the assumption that it's all prospecting, we need to trim this down a little bit. The easy things to do here are if there's any duplicate ads. So if I were to open up all of these campaigns and all of the active ad sets here, which are most of them, and then we were to look at all of the ads, there's 194 ads that are active in here. First and foremost thing I want to do is, are there just straight duplicates? Are there duplicates that are not getting spend? Is there anything we could just trim off right away? The trimming here isn't 100% necessary, but we want to get ourselves as quick as possible to a single prospecting CBO campaign. So, removal of campaigns if necessary. A great example would be like this one right here. 0.59 return on ad spend, $3,800 in spend. Easy slash, right? We go down the list and we'd slash where we can and add certain ad sets or packs or creative that we know works into our prospecting CBO. But don't forget the cardinal rule, do not pause it, do not kill it if it's functioning. I would much rather you have 2 campaigns, 5 campaigns that are all working than one that's all starting from scratch. You're going to get the itch to start from scratch. You're going to get the itch to just get rid of it and clean it up. I'm telling you, it's the wrong move. I'll send you right back to this video at this timestamp and tell you it's the wrong move. Okay. So we've identified which campaign is going to be our now prospecting CBO. We now need to identify, do we need to use retargeting? Yes or no? This is pretty simple as well. We're going to go over to our breakdowns tab here, and we're going to select audience segments. If you do not have audience segments set up, you are not going to be able to make this distinction, and you just have to go off a gut feeling here. There's not going to be too much data for you. So slight, partially gut, also partially based on the actual data you have in your Shopify or wherever you're driving your sales. So in this section here, what we're going to be looking for is where is our revenue coming from? We're going to click this all the way down here, zoom in just one step here. And we're trying to understand where is our revenue coming between new audiences, engaged audiences, and existing customers. Generally, what I want to understand is, are we overspending on engaged audiences? Now, in this case, you can see pretty clearly we are fairly healthy here. So if we just look through this account, we're a little bit half and half, I'd say. So we spent $123,000, 91 on new, 26 on engaged audiences. Engaged drive a 2.12 return on ad spend. Frequency is pretty high, 20 frequency overall. That is pretty high. So we could probably underspend a little bit more on engaged. However, we already have in this account, you can kind of see it right here. There's already a retargeting and retention campaign set up. So it doesn't really concern me that we have this high frequency. In this case, I would then make the distinction that we do not need, or the decision rather, that we do not need a retargeting campaign. Just so I'm extremely clear about this, because I know this is going to confuse a lot of people, and I've made that decision so many hundreds of times before. Excuse me. When it comes to your prospecting campaign versus your retargeting campaign, or prospecting campaign versus your retargeting campaign, the distinction that we're trying to understand is, do we want to include retargeting because we are either not spending enough on it or spending too much on it? If we're spending too much, then we want to break it out and then dedicate spend to it and exclude it from prospecting. If we're not spending enough, then we want to do the opposite. If we're not spending enough, then we want to break it out, exclude it, and force budget on retargeting. Both cases are normal. Both cases happen. If you're in a very roughly healthy range here, in this case, like 25 roughly % of the total spend is going to engaged audiences, totally normal. There's not exact rules. It's going to depend on your business. The higher ticket you are, the higher percentage you're going to need on engaged audiences, generally speaking. It's because you're going to be a more considered purchase, right? If you're selling something for $1,000, people are going to need to see your ads again and again and again. They're going to need to go to your website, back off your website, add to cart, think about it, see more ads. The funnel is longer. if you're selling something for $10, then most of your audience should be in the new side. So that distinction is made by looking at this data right here. It's the first place we look at it. Second thing we do is we break down the retention side, which is going to be what I consider a mandatory campaign. Now, nothing's mandatory, but it's a recommended campaign for sure. So the retention side is going to show us all-time purchasers and 180-day purchasers, basically anyone who's purchased from us before. To do this, we're doing the same thing. So we're looking at our audience segments and we're looking at our expenditure on existing customers. We can see here, they've only spent $6,000 on existing of the 123. Their frequency is astronomically high, 64. So this is an obvious, we need to break out the retention campaign. Breaking out the retention campaign means we're going to dedicate budget to existing customers without overspending on them, which is currently what's happening right now. Just making the changes that I've detailed already, we're going to do two things. First, we're probably going to spend a little bit less on engaged, and we're probably going to spend a little bit less on existing. We've likely saved somewhere of the tune of $5,000 total per month, with, I would imagine, a very minimal impact on total revenue for the actual business. Next, continuing this transfer, we have to talk about the scale campaign. Do we need a scale campaign? Yes or no? This is not a decision you need to make right now. This could be a decision that happens because you do so well, because there's a creative that pops, because you need to separate something. Generally, when it comes to our scale campaign, we're only using it for home run winners. Like, you should know and be able to name all of the active ads in your scale campaign. There might be like 3, 2, it might be just one ad, right? Don't get overwhelmed. You're not supposed to have 50 ads in your scale campaign. It's not the progression that we use anymore. In addition to this could just be for sales. So don't worry about having the scale campaign off the rip here. But if you look inside of your ad account right now, and just like we would figure out how to graduate any ad, we go to our columns, we go to our compare attributions, we go to incremental attribution and click apply. And if we were to look at all of our active ads, let me just go down to here. If we were to look at all of our active ads in the account, we're looking for the ads, if there are any, that drive very high volume and high return on ad spend. Now, this brand just does not have them. That's probably why they're knocking on our door, trying to work with us. But if they had those standout winners, then we would then be able to take maybe 1 to 3 at most of those winners and put them in a dedicated place. Consider this the last highly optional step. Watch the scale campaign module inside of the blueprint, because it's going to take you through exactly when to do this and exactly how to figure out which ads to scale. In terms of transitioning, all we need to focus on, going back here, all we need to focus on is, are we putting what are we transferring into our prospecting campaign? Meaning, are we turning a campaign into our prospecting campaign, which 9 out of 10 times you are. 2, are we doing the same exact thing for our retention campaign? And 3, are we setting up a retargeting campaign? So as a short recap here, because I think it's important, this is the number one asked question we've had in the blueprint over the last 6 months. We're taking our highest spending campaign, ideally one that has a lot of already existing creative, a lot of history, and we're going to start building the pack system within that campaign. Second, we're identifying if there is already a retargeting campaign, which we're doing by the audience segments, and we're understanding our total retargeting in the account to then make a determination if we need to make a retargeting campaign, or if we could take an existing retargeting campaign and use that, or if we don't need one at all because it is optional. Again, watch the actual module on the retargeting campaign. It goes through exactly when to use it and when not to. And then third, we're doing the same exact thing on the retention side. We're looking if we have a high retention existing customer campaign already, which in this case would be these guys right here. And we're merging that to become the retention campaign. So instead of axing all the hard work you've done over the potential years that you've been running your ads, you're just transferring. You're moving slow on a transfer. The system is not a magic bullet. It's a system, right? You don't just put all your stuff in the project management tool and it works. No, you still have to do the work. This is just the system that's going to get you to the ideal position you want to be in, to goal, as quick as possible. So that right there is how you transfer. As always, questions on this are going to be coming, so feel free to ask anytime. All right, I've given you the core 4, the most important 4 campaigns that you need to run. I'm going to give you one more that I think is critical for most brands. The reason this isn't technically core 4, it kind of could just be core 5, is because it doesn't apply to every single business. So take this one a little bit more with a grain of salt, but know that this is a fantastic and very, very easy way to boost your return on ad spend, specifically for retargeting and engaged customers. So in our current setup, we have set up a retargeting campaign, which is consisting of normal pieces of creative from add to cart and site visitors over the last 30 days. However, there's one thing that I really like to do, which is create a new retargeting campaign. And the easiest way to do this is duplicate our existing one that we already built. And the only difference here is this is going to be a catalog-based campaign, which means at the very top in the campaign settings, we're going to create an Advantage Plus catalog ads campaign. We're going to select our correct Shopify catalog. Let me get the correct one in place. Okay. We are going to set this up at a campaign budget because it's just going to be one ad set, so it doesn't really matter, and it's going to be very low. We're talking $5, $10. You could use the same tool that we've already provided, the retargeting CPM tool that we have already. So there's a really small daily budget. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go all the way down here. Everything stays the same. And we're just going to delete one of these ad sets. It doesn't matter which one you delete because we only need one of them. So we're going to have one ad set in here. And this is going to be ATC plus visit underscore 14 days. This is going to very specifically be for anyone who's added to cart or visited or viewed content in the last 14 days on our website. The conversion event is going to be website. The performance goal is going to be maximize number of conversions, and the conversion event is going to be purchase. Everything here is standard. 7-day click, 1-day view as normal. And the first thing that you need to make sure is in place is your promoted products are the correct product set. This is generally what you want to be all of your products. The audience is where things get interesting here. So when we go to your audience, we are going to not touch anything in terms of inclusions or exclusions. There's going to be no exclusions in place here. And we're going to create a new custom audience. Click custom audience. And then you have to click catalog in your custom audience. You then need to select people who viewed products from your product set over the last 14 days. Actually, let me just make sure this is the correct one here. Yep. People who viewed product in your product set over the last 14 days. Include more people. People who added to cart in the last 14 days. So this is going to be called view plus ATC 14 days. Okay. We're going to create that audience. Click done. Next thing we're going to do is add an exclusion. And we specifically need to create an exclusion for anyone who's purchased in the last 14 days. Now I've done this already. I've showed you all how to create these already. So just easily purchased 14 days. Okay. The reason that we have to do this here and not set it at the catalog level is because if you set it at the catalog level, it's only going to exclude it if they purchase that individual product. We don't want to hit anyone with ads who's purchased anything from us in the last 14 days. Now, the reason this is such an amazing audience basically is because when we go and create our ads here, which I will preview for you before we get into the full ads section. So when we go and actually create our ads here and we set these up as a catalog ad because that's what we did at the campaign level, what you're going to notice is that I know you can't see this perfectly, but on the right-hand side here, we have our actual products in place. These are only going to show products that people saw or added to cart in the last 14 days. This used to be a lot easier to do in Facebook ads in terms of your targeting. They just made it weirdly hidden, and it's still a kind of a hidden gem, something that works super, super well. So this is one of the easiest campaigns to set up. And I want to tell you one more part about this. If you set this campaign up and you don't have adequate creative to hit at a retargeting level, don't be afraid to take this campaign. Don't be afraid to take this campaign and add a second ad set here that goes beyond the 14 days, perhaps even going as far as 90 days out. The only caveat with going 90 days out is that the products are going to be way less relevant to people and your product catalog changes. So generally speaking, this as 14 days is one of the best ad sets that you can possibly have because it's very relevant. It's things people added to cart and saw on your website in just the last 2 weeks. That was a quick one. This is all right. So when it comes to setting up the perfect advertiser settings across your account, it's going to start at the most basic level. What we're going to do is go into your ad account and go to the left-hand side and select advertiser settings. Once you're in here, there's quite a few things. Big note, these have changed drastically over time. So if in just the last couple of months you haven't been in here, I would highly advise you stick around for this 5-6 minute tutorial because I'm going to break down everything that we do. These are the exact settings that we use for all the accounts that we manage as well. So first things first, we're just going to start in order here. Account controls. So what account controls do is there's two of them. There's audience controls and placement controls. Audience controls actually allow you to specify locations, age, and then if you're offering restricted advertising or restricted goods in advertising. Now, what I would advise in all cases is to leave this blank unless you actually have a truly age-restricted product. Because even by selecting this and changing the minimum age to 21 or even just selecting it to 18, even if you're trying to manipulate the algorithm in a way to say, I don't want to show to anyone younger than a certain age, this is actually flagging to Google that there is a restricted good for a reason, which is automatically going to make your CPMs likely a bit higher. We want to avoid this. So we shut all of these off unless you absolutely have to. The next piece is placement controls. This is the same piece here, and they actually warn you pretty clearly to avoid unnecessary performance loss, only exclude placements when required. This is really true. So in all cases, we keep all placements on, and if we want to edit these, then we could edit them in the campaigns, in the ad sets. In most cases, this is just going to throw up some sort of a restriction in your account, even though it might not say it. Think of this as being like what they used to call it, like blacklisted or ghosted, ghost shadow ban. That's the word I'm looking for. Think of this as like you're shadow banning yourself in a way. So we want to cancel this. We never want these on. Next piece here is Meta Verified. Now, Meta Verified, if it ever loads for me, is something that a lot of people have actually pushed and really want to be a part of. I've seen benefits and drawbacks of this. The benefits that we've seen of this are really clear. There's some links that we could add to Reels. There's some more stuff coming, and you get that little blue badge saying basically that you're a legit advertiser. However, as a little secret behind the scenes, we've seen two issues. First, we've actually seen CPCs and CPMs go up. So there's no proof in this so far, but what I'm thinking is that these Meta verified accounts are getting pushed to slightly more premium users on the platforms, which are costing them more without them even wanting to. Now, I could be totally wrong about that. And what could actually be happening is because you're Meta verified, because you have that little blue check mark, certain kinds of people react better to that. And then the algorithm sees that information and they say, we need to find more of these kinds of people that react better to verified content. Just because someone reacts to verified content or because you have that tag doesn't mean your CPCs or your purchase rates or your conversion rates are actually going to go up. So I'd be a little careful on this. The second issue we have is if you ever want to give anyone access, an agency, a partner, your consultant, your best friend, there's always issues when you have Meta verified in place. So just a heads up, we've had a lot of brands that we work with actually remove themselves, request a withdrawal from the program, which sounds a bit crazy for something that Facebook's pushed so hard in the last year. Outside of Meta Verified, the next piece is Advantage plus Creative. So everything down here is going to be way more impactful than these first two. Advantage plus Creative. There's this little checkbox for most industries that actually allows us to click and select test new enhancements. What this is going to do is it's going to test for different Advantage plus, different AI features on your ads 5% of the time. We can click learn more here and it should show us a couple of these examples, some that they've rolled out in the past: brightness, show products, add overlays, enhance ETA, expand image animation, the list goes on and on. On my end, I want to be able to select these all the time, and I never want Facebook to have to select these for me. We could always select these enhancements within the ad platform, and I have news for everyone, literally everyone. If it's so good, it's going to be mandated by Facebook, right? So if they found that, hey, adding relevant comments only, for example, is so good, it always drives better performance, they're going to mandate it and only show relevant comments, period, end of story, because there will be a certain point where that is actually more money in Meta's pocket. So we're not guinea pigs. We don't like to be tested, which is why we always shut this off and we select it at the ad set or even ad level, even though it's going to take you way more time to build. Those are wins that we want to take. Next piece here is audience segments. This is the most important part of all of advertiser settings. So your audience segments actually allow you, I'll show you in the ads manager here. Your audience segments actually allow you to see when you click this breakdown button and you type in audience segments, they allow you to see your spend on new customers, engaged customers, and existing customers. We always want to have a good pulse on new versus engaged versus existing. If we don't have a good pulse on these breakouts, we really put ourselves in a kind of a sketchy scenario because we don't know if Facebook's overspending or underspending on one of these categories. So if we go back to our advertiser settings and click on audience segments, what I would generally set up here is exactly what I have on screen, but you could get more expansive if you're newer or if you don't have as big audiences so far. First, we're going to set up our add to cart 90 days and our visitors 30 days. We're considering anyone who's added to cart or been to our site or added to cart 90 days and visited site in the last 30 days. We're considering those people engaged. Above, we have our Klaviyo lists. So this is going to be another module that we have in here that's going to specifically show you how you can import all of your Klaviyo data into Facebook. Just note that you're going to want to take that data and also put it into your customer list here as well, because it's enhancing. It's basically the exact same thing as what you have here from your Pixel and your Conversions API. It's just taking it and doubling down. So there's duplication here. We don't care because it's just a segmented list. The next piece under customer list is existing customers. In existing customers, we have purchasers. Really, you can go 180 days. We did 90 days in this account because there was an issue, but you should do 180 days at least. And then we did purchase from the website 180 days. Now, the Klaviyo list, again, show you how to import that. The purchase 180 days is coming right from your Pixel. And how you could easily build this is just by clicking create a custom audience, use your website activity, make sure you select your correct pixel, move your audience retention rate to 180 for purchasers, change the event to purchase, name your event, and click create audience. I don't have to because it's right here already. Once you have these set up, they don't pull back retroactively. They're always moving forward. They will be in your ad account right here, and you can click breakdown audience segments to see the performance per segment. It's one of the most important things that you can possibly do in your ad account because we always need to know how much are we spending on existing customers, how much are we spending on engaged customers, how much are we spending on new customers. Excuse me. All right. I think that's a wrap for this one. Those advertiser settings are really key. Get those set up right away. And then we're going to jump into a lot of detailed. This is one of those videos that I get in trouble for like 6 months later. So in this video, I'm going to be teaching you the secret to broad audiences. I'm going to specifically be going through why your broad audiences potentially don't work, why they plateau, and how to generally improve all of your broad audiences to hit more people more efficiently, improve your return on ad spend, and kind of the list goes on and on here. Basically, let's identify the problem first with broad audiences, and then I'll go through the solution. The problem is very simple. You think you're targeting a broad audience, so therefore you think when you set up broad for the first time, don't mind my scribbles as usual, when you set up broad, you think you're targeting 300 million people, right? This is assuming you're hitting the entire addressable United States, all men, all women, all ages. You're just hitting everyone. That's a pure broad audience in the USA. You'd hit roughly 300 million people because that's about how many people have a Facebook app available to them. Now, let's just pretend that actually only 150 million people log on to Facebook once a week, so it cuts this 300 in half. Cool. We still have a massive broad audience. We're never going to actually target 150 million people. The problem isn't there. The problem is that when you spend your money, you're not even coming close to having the ability, keyword ability, to target this 150. What you're actually doing is your pixel, so your pixel, we're going to say this is your pixel. Your pixel, we need a star for your pixel. Our pixel is learning a bunch of information. It's getting a bunch of signals. It's getting signals for who visits your site. And all these signals are spitting out who you should target in the future. So your pixel, this guy here right in the middle, your pixel gets informed by all of your site traffic. It gets informed by everyone who visits your ads, everyone who clicks on your ads, comments on your ads, shares your ads, and their friends and their friends' friends. And it says, okay, we know that this kind of a person is likely to interact with this ad. So therefore, let's find more people like these. So what really winds up happening, and I'm trying to break this down as simply as possible. What really winds up happening is you have very similar people in pockets like this. So we're calling these people. The pixel learns from these people, and then it spits out new, different people that look like these people here. But what winds up happening over time is that as you continue to run ads, as you increase spend, you do not increase your reach. Reach is the unique amount of people that you interact with. Period. End of story. It is one of the most simple, most common metrics. I don't want you to get confused between reach and impressions. Impressions are how many times you touch anyone. So for example, if you get your ad in front of 100 people, right? These are 100 impressions. Excuse me. I botched my own example here. If you show your ad to 100 people, those are 100 people reached. But if each person saw your ad 5 times, then your total impressions is 500. Okay? So this would be impressions. This is your reach. Your frequency is this 5 here. Frequency is 5. Because frequency is literally impressions divided by reach. So what winds up happening as you continue to spend more, almost everyone can see this in their ad accounts as they spent a lot, is your spend, which we'll identify in green, your spend goes up. It doubles, right? So you just steadily increase your spend. This was, $100 a day. This is $200 a day, and so on. You continue to increase your spend. But what happens is, you would think as you increase your spend, your reach, which is right here, which we're going to identify in red, your reach, you would think what it would do is your reach would just stay on the same arc as your total spend, right? They would be correlated. They'd be very close. However, what winds up happening is you at first experience the lift because you're finding people that are addressable to you. And then steadily over time, your reach begins to slowly plateau. Now, if you keep spending and keep spending, you will never purely plateau. Like you're never going to run out of people unless you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars per day. But eventually what winds up happening is it's harder to reach the next person. What actually happens, and I'll show this in blue, is you're spending more money, your reach, your unique people that you're reaching is decreasing, but your impressions continues to go up. So your impressions follows the same path as your spend, roughly speaking, where your reach goes down. This is a huge problem because this could happen to a lot of brands at just like 50,000 people, 100,000 people. That's very, very little. You need to be impressing millions of people every single day to get your brand well known. How do we solve this problem? How do we solve this delta right here? It's actually not that complicated. The way that we solve this problem is we get different people outside of this group, different people outside of this group right here to see our ads for the first time. When different people see our ads for the first time, which I'm marking in black, these are new people, then the pixel, which stays the same, spits different new people out. Different from the group before that I've labeled in black. Now they're red. So we need different inputs going into the pixel to get different outputs from our audiences. Who cares? Why does this even matter? Well, I think you know why it matters, but what does this have to do with broad? Basically, your broad audience, in very simple terms, despite saying on the label that it's going to target 300 million people, it's probably targeting a very, very small percentage of these 300 million people. In fact, that percentage might be as much as 1% of this 300 million people at maximum. So how we solve this is we combined interest groups with top winning ads into our setups. Now, I've showed everyone this probably 1,000 times here already, and I'm sure you're going to watch the setup video for all of this. But I just want to explain the philosophy more than anything. The way that we do this in our structure, our M3 structure, is within our prospecting CBO, in addition to all the broads that we have labeled here, we also have our interests labeled here on the bottom. They're composed of just the winning best ads. So now we have the best ads going to completely new people, and then those new people then informing the pixel and therefore spitting back new folks that we could potentially target in the future, gaining more reach. So it's actually a flywheel that occurs, because what winds up happening is while these interests find new people, then those new people get funneled back into the broad. So let's go back to where we were before, back to my crappy drawings over here. What winds up happening is your broad at start is actually only targeting, let's just say for the sake of this example, 50,000 people is the most amount of people you could reach. It takes you a whole lot more to get beyond that. You could look at your ad accounts, you could look at your spend by week, by month, and understand how many people you're reaching and understand where it caps. Let's say it hits 50,000 people, and maybe you can push it up to 55. Maybe you really spend a lot, you push it up to 75, but you really can't get out of this range, 50 to 100,000 people. What happens is you run an interest group. That interest group is very different than the broad, right? So to be clear, if you're Nike, you don't target Nike. You don't target Adidas. That's always a given. If you're Nike, what you do is you target Neiman Marcus or Macy's, big other department stores that are similar, have similar shoppers, but don't necessarily sell the exact only same thing, aka fitness apparel. So you have an interest group. This interest group targets new people. We're just going to say new people in general. And then what winds up happening, this is the flywheel, the new people from here turn this 50,000 into 100,000. That's a broad, very big example of doubling. But what winds up basically happening is your broad audience goes from this small to this, to this, to this. Every successful interest you have gives new signals to the pixel for people that may be interested in your brand, and therefore the broad audiences expand, lowering your CPMs, lowering your CPCs, and widening your addressable market. This is one of the biggest secrets. I've basically talked about this around the bush here and there. I've never really given out the philosophy of this. Hold this one tight to your chest, guys. This is one of those nuanced things that I don't think most people actually wrap their head around. And if you just listen to this 9 or 10 minutes and you're like, yeah, I don't get it, listen again. You're creating a flywheel to expand your broad audiences. And if you don't understand this concept, you're going to have a hard time with other concepts. This video is specifically made for people who have high engagement on Instagram and Facebook. What I'm going to basically detail in this video is how to leverage that audience that you have organically into your ads. I wouldn't say this is an advanced operation by any means. I would just consider this to be something that's very, very helpful, very additive, especially if you have any sort of organic following. And for people that don't have huge organic following, this is something you should be just considering, keeping in the back of mind so that when things do pick up organically, which I encourage basically everyone to focus on in some capacity, use this because it's really an easy way to gain more customers and double down on the viewership that you get organically. So the long story short here is that the views on Instagram, the views on Facebook, the real watches, the Instagram likes, the comments, the shares, and the people that see your shares, etc., are all tracked by Facebook, and we actually have the capability to properly retarget those groups. I'm just going to show you how to really easily do this. Now, in terms of structure, what you would basically do is you would bring this into your retargeting setup in most cases. So you can see here, I have like a 14-day Facebook and IG engagers. I went through this in the retargeting setup, but just want to detail out like how you could actually create these engagement groups, because I think they're pretty important for us. So very simply put, in any sort of campaign, I have it in a prospecting, this is just a dummy campaign. It would be a retargeting campaign. First thing you need to do is click further limit the reach of your ads and click switch setup. Once you do that, you'll have detailed targeting enabled, you'll have custom audiences enabled. We're going to click custom audiences, create new custom audience. Once you're here, you're going to use two of your meta sources, which are going to be your Instagram account and your Facebook page. To keep this simple for everyone, we're going to use Instagram account, click next. Choose your appropriate Instagram account, obviously. I'm just going to type in one here. And then we have a whole lot of events that we could use to potentially target. This is really going to come down to just how big your account is in most cases. But the easiest thing to do is just use anyone who's engaged with your professional account. And I would never go beyond 30 days here. 30 days is kind of the maximum for someone retaining any sort of information about a product that they saw, specifically through an organic post that people can potentially see hundreds of every single day. So anyone who engaged an account is ideal. Now, if you have so much engagement, you might want to break this down into two different places. Anyone who's engaged in an account is one that's easy. A second piece of this would be a little bit more advanced, which would be anyone who saved a post, anyone who sent a message. Those are the two probably most important, or if you want to be a little bit more simple with this, anyone who engaged with any post or ad. So engaging with any post or ad is took action on this post, such as likes, comments, saves, swipes, button taps, or shares. That's pretty high engagement these days, where anyone who's engaged with a professional account includes visiting a profile. So that visit of a profile doesn't actually indicate heavy interest, where engage with any ad indicates a little bit more interest and just a little bit lower down that funnel, which I'd recommend. You do 30-day engagement here. You set this up. This we'll just call engagers or IG engagers 30 days. Create audience. Once you create this audience, the next thing you just need to make sure you do is unselect use as a suggestion. So unselect that use as a suggestion. Now in this case, this brand's engagement on Instagram is actually very high. Don't worry about this audience segment. It is not going to be fewer than 1,000 people. This is very, very solid here. Other than that, that's really how we set it up. I know I kept that very simple, but don't be scared if you have multiple, really, really large following, like hundreds of thousands of followers or potentially hundreds of thousands of viewers. Don't be scared to break this out into a couple different audiences and even drill down from 30 to 14 days. I just wanted to really detail this because I think it's a thing that people miss a lot. And it's a really, really cheap and easy way to get traffic back to these engagers that or engage with you organically. And the last thing I'll say is that from a bidding perspective, if you push this side by side with add to carts and site visitors in the same campaign, it may hog a lot of the spend. That's because it's just a bigger audience in most cases. If it does hog a lot of the spend, the thing that I'd recommend doing is actually really simple. We're just going to set a budget limit, so an ad set spending limit on this specific ad set. Put the ad set on, put a maximum in. You're going to have to judge this based on your own spends, but just cap it out. Don't let it overspend every single day, because usually this is going to convert worse than true retargeting like add to carts or site visitors, but it's still going to usually convert better than cold prospecting. In this video, we're going to be going over what to scale, how to scale it, and specifically how to look at different attribution breakdowns that will inform you on what you should actually spend more money on. The system has changed. If you're watching this video, it's very likely you've watched all the structural breakdowns already. I would highly advise
going to those structural breakdowns first if you haven't. Assuming you have at this point, the core thing that we need to understand is that the graduation system has changed quite a bit. And because of that change, you don't need to do as much work on graduating ads, but you need to know exactly when you need to scale certain ads and how you can feel confident in scaling those ads. So, in this video, what I'm going through is actually just some core metrics. I'm also going to be showing you how this applies into this system right here. So in this system, which we know quite well at this point, we have a core prospecting and a retention-based campaign as our core. We have a optional retargeting campaign. I'd say about 50% of brands are going to have a retargeting campaign, and a highly optional scale campaign. This is super highly optional. Now, I explained this in the scale video a little bit, but basically, short version, what we're scaling into our scale campaign are our best performing ads from our prospecting CBO into the scale campaign. These need to be home runs, absolute monster ads that are already getting a boatload of spend that you want to force even more spend on. The scale campaign does nothing magical. It's just forcing spend against ads without forcing you to increase your prospecting budget massively. So we're spending more on scale instead of increasing on prospecting, only in certain cases. I can't stress that enough. This is not meant to always scale ads. We're just doing this when we feel like we absolutely need to. This is a back against the wall scenario. Other than that, the other place we graduate more and more often to is our interest groups. We graduate pretty constantly into interest groups, and we graduate, as you would say sometimes, into our retention and into our retargeting campaign. Now, our retention and retargeting campaign, as we went through in the detail, often have a lot of ads in them already. This is just to make sure you're not missing anything. So with all this said, I'm going to show you the metrics that I look for to actually make sure that I'm confident in graduating any ad, or basically just spending more against any ad at any time. So we're going to go into the ads manager again. You're going to note here that a lot's going to be blurred out. This is a real client account. You're not going to be able to see the images, the previews. Everything's going to be a little hard to see, but we're just focusing on the metrics here. In this case, we're only focusing on our prospecting campaign only. Now, you could do the same exercise for other campaigns, but I really only care about prospecting in this case. What I'm looking at here, and what I would advise everyone to do first, is to go to their columns, click compare attribution settings, and select incremental attribution. So without incremental attribution, your columns might look something like this, with amount spent, cost per purchase, ROAS, revenue, etc. With incremental attribution, when you click here and here, you're then going to see the incremental cost per purchase, incremental ROAS, and so on. You should generally see a drop off from your purchase ROAS here to your actual incremental here. Keep in mind, this is a business that spends a whole lot of money. They're very comfortable in pure prospecting, driving anywhere over a 1.2 incremental. So for this business, what I'm looking at when I want to feel very confident that we can scale something are ads that have a high regular return on ad spend and are over our acceptable baseline for incremental return on ad spend. So in this case, let's just go through it. It's actually not overly complicated here. There's a couple nuances you want to look for, basically. Sometimes what happens in ads, like this 1.76 ad that would be above our acceptable threshold, has a very steep drop off, 1.76 to 1.2. And then we have others that have very little drop off, or just overall less drop off, like or this is even bigger, 2 to 1.25. That's a huge drop off, right? We have less drop off, like 2.38 to 1.39, 2.11 to 1.88. These are very incremental ads. So all we're looking for in this case is making sure that we are actually focusing our ad spend and our attention and our creative briefing. This basically goes for everything, on the ads that are most incremental to the business. Now, what incremental means, just so everyone really understands this, is it's reporting based on only the conversions that Facebook believes happened because of Facebook. This eliminates basically any conversions that happened at the last second that Facebook doesn't think they should have been taking credit for. We've all been in this scenario where we can't understand why Google takes credit, Facebook takes credit, direct takes credit, email takes credit, everyone takes credit. And then you start to go down the rabbit hole of, should I get Triple Whale? Should I get this platform? This is the easiest line of sight to understand how incremental your ads actually are in Facebook ads. And it's literally created off of the back of thousands of incrementality tests by huge brands. So now all the smaller brands, and when I say small, I don't mean $100 a day. I mean brands that are not spending $1 million a month now have the advantage of using incremental attribution at will. It's pretty incredible. So when it comes to what we actually want to scale, what we actually want to grow in the account, what we want to force more spend against, we're always focusing on high ROAS or whatever your KPI is, and high spend and high incremental KPI. So, for example, we're not scrolling down and looking forever and ever and trying to find an ad that drove a 2.15 incremental return on ad spend with only $178 in spend when the whole account has spent $115,000, or even in this case, a 3x, but very little incremental, right? You're going to be able to cherry pick a lot, especially as you get down to very little spend. You're going to find random like home runs, they'll feel like, but they're not at all. $48 in spend, 9 return on ad spend, right? You might think, oh my gosh, this is going to kill it. Not at all. What we're looking for are the high spenders, truly top 10% of the account, and high incremental return on ad spend. Those have the option to be graduated into the scale campaign, and they have the option to be graduated into successful interest groups. So if we pop back over here to our original prospecting CBO that we created, what would happen is if new sales ad right here was a successful ad, so successful that we felt confident in scaling based on the incremental return on ad spend and the total spend, then we would literally click quick duplicate or duplicate, and we would rather just copy Command C and Command V right into the interest group that is full of winners. So even though we are not graduating into the scale campaign as frequently like we have here, this is optional, we are still graduating into our interest groups. We want to enhance those interest groups as much as possible. Now, there's a little play here. There's a little art in the science here. If you have an interest group that is crushing it, it is absolutely on fire, it's spending a boatload of money, it's driving a high return on ad spend, don't interfere with it. Don't throw a new ad in the mix. Just create a duplicate of that interest group, right? Even though I try to prescribe everything here as clearly as possible, there's always nuance. And don't forget, when something is working, don't break it. That's all for this one. The graduation system is even easier.
In this video, I'm going to be showing you exactly how you can enhance every single audience within your Facebook ads, specifically by using Klaviyo. Now, if you don't use Klaviyo and you have a different CRM, the principles are going to apply. I'm just going to show you how to do this within Klaviyo, and then we're going to move into the Facebook Ads Manager. This is going to be a very short video. So without further ado, let's hop in. If you're in the Klaviyo platform, first things first, you're going to need to install the Meta Ads integration and any other platforms that you might have. Once you're in and once you create this integration, you're going to see settings within here that show your lists. Now, before we get ahead of ourselves, what you actually need to be doing in here is you need to be creating lists, so these Klaviyo lists, and then porting them in to Facebook. So as you can see here, this is a few lists that we've already set up for this account. These are actually the most important ones, but you can go well beyond this based on your brand's needs. Now, how do we even create these segments / lists? It's actually very simple. So all we need to do is we need to create these lists for the first time within the Klaviyo platform. And the way that we do that is we go to audiences, lists, and segments. Once we're there, we create a new list or a segment in most cases. And we're just going to name this list, we're going to say blueprint test. I like to put, what you should really do here is you should say 4 ads, just so it's really clear so that your email team doesn't use these accidentally. In this case, the most important thing for us to get are the exact replications of the ad sets, make sure I'm saying that right, of the ad sets and audiences that we're using. For example, if we run 30-day add to carts or 90-day add to carts, then what we want to basically do here is we want to use this segment builder to recreate the add to cart flow. So what someone has done or not done, person has added to cart at least once in the last 90 days. Boom. And you can see the number of profiles that have added to cart that we've collected in the last 90 days. This is a very, very small segment, so just keep that in mind. And you could do the same thing on any of your basically events coming from Shopify. You could also expand this. You could do, or someone has done initiate checkout. Well, initiate checkout actually isn't a thing in here, but checkout started would be the one. So checkout started within the last 90 days. And then we can see our audience size starts to get significantly larger, right? So we're doubling down here. You could also do some additional conditions depending on your theme, depending on what kind of setup you have. But one of the things that we have here available to us are the active on site, which is through the API. This should be set up automatically in Klaviyo. I'm not a Klaviyo expert, but if you do set this up active on site at least once within the last 90 days, what this is going to do is it's going to take anyone whose email you collected and it is finding if that person has been active on your site in a certain period of time. Now, this is technically 2 audiences, so we're just going to create this one. Once you go ahead and create this segment, which I'm not going to do for this preview, but you can go ahead and click create this segment, it will become a segment in your normal list here. Once it is a segment in this list here, you can go back to integrations, back to meta ads, and then you will see if you click add a connection, you could then select your exact Klaviyo list. Now in this case, I have marked appropriately ads. And we have the ads add to cart 90 days, which is right here. So what I would like to do is in my actual Facebook platform, if I go to my retargeting setup here, and we have our add to cart, let's say this is our add to cart 90-day audience that we've created. And again, this is unique to your business, to your setup, but giving you the general rules here. Add to cart 90-day setup here. We're going to go down to our audiences. Of course, in this case, I've not set this up. This is just a demo, but we're going to switch our setup. We're going to make sure we have, this is the key part of this is that we have our add to cart from our pixel. So we have our add to cart 90 days, which is coming from the pixel. Don't select users as a suggestion. And then in addition to this, we're going to find this audience here, which we've named ads ATC 90. We're going to copy that. We're going to drop that right in here. And we can see it's set up in here. Now, this one hasn't been added properly. It's not really a big deal because I just created it 2 minutes ago. But in most cases, these should show up green. And now what we have here is our add to carts from our pixel and our add to cart from a customer list that's coming directly from Klaviyo. Now, a lot of people will say, okay, it's the same exact thing. Who cares? The reality is yeah, it's the same thing, but perhaps there's a little bit more matching going on. And perhaps that 5 or 10 or 15% matching that you get better is going to result in a 5 or 10 or 15% improvement in sales. I don't like to let anything slip through the cracks. Why should you? It's very simple. So in this case right here, I would highly, highly recommend you add both of these and do this for all of your audiences. You can go well beyond these 5 that I gave here or 4 that I gave here, which is purchasers, add to carts, and visitors. You can break this down for anyone that you're targeting that has any sort of ability to capture that same thing within Klaviyo.
In this video, we're going to be going through creative volume, just how many ads to launch based on how much you're spending. And then we're going to go through how to group those ads together and where to launch them inside your prospecting CBO setup. So I'm going to be going and using the Moonlighter's creative volume calculator. You can get it for free down in the description. But before you do that, don't jump there and just dive right into it because there's some things that are not going to make sense. I'm going to go through in about 5 minutes here. Also, if this calculator is password protected, the password will be down below in the description as well. This is so it stays as a tool exclusively for people watching this video inside the Skool community. That said, let's rock and roll. So The base rule of how we think about creative volume is for every $10,000 in spend, you should launch one creative or one ad per week. So that very simply means $100,000 in spend, 10 creatives. $10,000 in spend, one creative per week. Now, we always want to round up and there's floors. So let me show you how this calculator actually works. If you enter in here $100,000, you will see, zoom out a little bit, you will see new ads to launch per week is 10. If you go 200, you'll see 20. Pretty simple. If you are spending on the lower side and you're spending, say, 1,000 per week, we're going to see a floor of 2 ads to launch per week. If you're launching 10,000, you're going to see a floor of 2 ads to launch per week. This is because launching 1 ad per week is kind of just not really a good thing to do. Keep it as simple as that. You'll also see in this calculator how this functions is you're going to see a slider between new concepts and proven concepts. So I'm going to work our way up from $10,000 in total monthly spend all the way up the ladder here. At $10,000 a month in ad spend, we're going to see 13% proven concepts, 87% new concepts. Now, if you just look at this bottom signal here, you're going to see just 2 new concepts, 0 proven concepts. But at 13% proven concepts, that means that every once in a while, every few weeks, get a iteration batch or an iterative batch of your top performing ads. And most of the time, launch new concepts. At $100,000 in spend, you're going to see this very quickly shift to 53 and 47. This is easy, 5-5. At $200,000 ad spend, you're going to see this cap at an 80-20. Once you're past a certain stage, which is 200K, you really want to spend the majority of your creative resources making things you know work because you probably established your creative pillars. Then you're taking 20% of your creative resources and pushing them onto new concepts. Now, I know I'm oversimplifying this and moving through this very quickly, but let's say you're in a case where you're just starting, you're spending $2,000. You, for the most part, need to be taking new swings and new concepts into play. If you don't know the definition of a concept versus an iteration, go to the creative modules. It's going to be very, very, very important for actually understanding what's new versus what's proven. The last note on this is quality always beats quantity. I know this is like cliche thing to say, but let me explain why. The For You algorithm is literally built for quality, not quantity. Quantity does not get rewarded. So if you only have the capability to build, let's say you're spending $90,000, $3,000 a day. If you only have the capability to build 3 quality ads per week, only make 3 quality ads. Do not try to also make up to this 9 number and as a result make 9 medium or decent ads. Decent gets no exposure. Literally, the 1% of ads drive the majority of the revenue in every ad account. So we only want to cater to building the best ads. That is essentially how the volume side of the creative game goes. Now we're going to be looking in our prospecting CBO campaign. Now I've abridged some of this stuff, if that's the right word to use. I've cut off some of this stuff so we could just see the important stuff. When we have a new round of creative ready, we have made a shift here. We are grouping these by concept. If you're like, well, I got 3 new concepts and they're all different. If they're really different, separate them into 3 different ad sets. If they're not really different, group them together. Generally, if you took 1,000 ads that the biggest brand in the world is running, you would see that most things can get grouped into categories, generally, right? So if you got a UGC package from a creator you're working with, that is all one concept, even if they're talking about different things in that package. If you made a round of static creatives that are similar, but not exactly the same, even if by definition you would say these are a little bit of a different concept, but they're close enough, group them together. This is just for organization for the most part. If you're having trouble on this, go to the avatar building section within the training and separate clearly by avatar. So if you're creating multiple creatives for different avatars, one of the easiest things to do is literally just group by avatar. Now, we're never injecting new ads into existing ad sets. So just to be very clear, you create the creative, that is the new creative that you have. You are then creating a new pack and you're launching the new ads into that new pack. It's a broad pack. That's typically how we run things. Now, I won't get into the complexities of minimum budgets, maximum budgets, all this stuff. That is a little bit for the account structure and setup side of things. But for now, just know that you're always launching into new packs. You're trying to group by concept or multiple similar concepts together because we don't want every ad set to have one ad or two ads. The sweet spot for number of ads in a single ad set is somewhere between 4 to 8. You can go lower because quality trumps quantity. I could flex up to 12 if I believe I have 12 really good quality ads ready to go. And that's pretty much it for how we launch these new ads based on the volume that we get from this calculator. I hope everyone really gets a lot of value out of this video because this is one of the most common questions that I've gotten, and put a lot of effort into building this calculator and making it all happen. So yeah.
You're following the M3 method. You're following the setups and prospecting, retargeting, retention. And now it's time to make sure you are perfecting the pack system. Now, the pack system is not necessarily a new system. It is something that's kind of in some way, shape, or form been around when it comes to Facebook ads. But the way that we specifically utilize the pack system is extremely, extremely critical. It's important. It allows you to minimize wasted ad spend at the same time that you could still guarantee that the best ads get the majority of the spend. So there's just a couple things that I want to go through within this pack system. Make sure that everyone really understands what's happening here. We're not necessarily talking about graduating here. I just want to highlight on the screen. I'm going to play around a little bit. And I really just want to share what I believe are the most important things that everyone needs to understand. As always, you are a business owner or you're a killer media manager. In either case, every business is slightly unique. Now, don't give yourself the excuse that, hey, my business is unique, so I shouldn't do this completely. But if there's something that pertains specifically to you, or you did something very unique, like you spent a ridiculous amount of money on a certain group of creatives and you need to guarantee that they get spend, or if you want to break something here because it applies to something unique that I'm not accounting for you, sure, break. But this is what works for basically all the businesses that we operate with. Let's drill in. So the way that the pack system operates at first, and really just the most important part of the pack system, every time you have a new round of creatives, that new round of creatives gets launched into a new pack. A pack is literally an ad set. It is a broad, in most cases, ad set with exclusions for retargeting and retention in place, just like we talked about in the prospecting video. The key of the packs, the reason the packs work so well is that they don't interfere with the learnings of all the other ad sets in your campaign. The only thing that the pack does, and the reason we introduced the pack, the only thing the pack interferes with is the budget that you set at the prospecting level. So if we set a $1,000 budget at the prospecting level, and we introduce, let's say we just introduced this new broad pack right here. Previously, all the spend was going into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different directions. And now we have a new element where new spend can go here. Because this new element gets added in, that naturally means that some spend's going to get taken away from here, some spend's going to get taken away from here, and so on, giving the new element a little bit more spend. Now, at first, what a lot of people think is that you should ABO with your prospecting campaign. You absolutely should never ABO with your prospecting campaign. And the reason for that, and the reason why the pack system works specifically well, is because we are creating a hyper-competitive environment within our prospecting campaign. What happens here when you run these packs, like I have written out here, is each of these packs compete with one another. This is a war to get spend. Very, very simply put, the best ads rise to the very top and they get overwhelmingly outsized the majority of the spend. It is completely okay if a few ads or a few ad sets or a few packs get 80+% of the spend. Don't let it freak you out. It's very normal and it should happen. Facebook is doubling down on what actually works the best. And the beautiful part about that is, let's say you have an ad that looks like this. This is the chart of the ad and it skyrockets, right? This is the spend it's getting per day. Then you have another ad in the ad account that looks maybe like this and it plateaus, but it still gets a certain amount of spend every single day. What's going to happen eventually is this ad right here is going to fatigue. And as this ad starts to fatigue, the spend needs to go somewhere. Guess what? This ad here will start to pick up. This process of some ads fatiguing and some ads picking up is very natural and expected. Now, there's certain nuanced cases where as the fatigue starts to occur, as the downfall starts to occur, if return on ad spend is not there, then you could axe the creative altogether. But in most cases, just letting them do their thing and letting this creative have its spike and start to fall is usually way better than axing it. Because, here's the big because usually what will happen is this creative will find a spot, let's say it's right around here, where it plateaus again. And once it plateaus again, and it stays steady, I know it looks like it's up. Once it plateaus again, it has found a consistent place where it can drive steady return on ad spend for you, steady results for you, and it's basically found its home within your ad account. What that then allows is it allows creatives like this new one here to also find a home and plateau. It also allows more new creatives to launch in that might have the same situation and it might actually rise above, right? So the trend lines of all of these creatives can change over time. Now, this does not happen. None of this happens if you cut things down too early. And it definitely doesn't happen if you run ABO. Because if you run ABO, then here's what your account looks like. Not like this. Your account looks like, let's grab a new color. Your account looks like this. Your account looks like every ad gets the same amount of spend. And I know what a lot of people think. They think that they could run ABO like this, right? Every ad gets the same amount of spend. And then if they find an ad that works well, they'll increase the spend and it'll get a new level of spend. And then if they find an ad that doesn't work well, they'll cut it. If they find another ad that works well, they'll get increased spend. If they find another ad that doesn't work well, they'll cut it. That sounds fantastic in reality. The big problem that happens here is that when this ad starts to fatigue, you never have the opportunity to allow it to find its plateau. You want ads to find their plateau. Viral ads are great. Like, we love that. We love the spike. We love when it cranks. But that's just not realistic all the time with every single ad. Every ad has a place within the funnel or within the system of your ad account. So what happens in an ABO system without proper pack setup is you have an ad just like this that not plateaus, that you spend. Maybe you increase the spend multiple times, and eventually the ROAS goes from a 3 to a 2 to a 1, or I'm being extreme. And then somewhere along the way you say, I got to cut this ad, it's not doing well. Or you say, okay, maybe I have to, actually lower the budget back down a step. Maybe it does pretty well at that budget. But the time, this is the big key. We talked about the black swan events. The time that you wasted right here, 5 days, 7 days, 14 days, 2 days, whatever, that you were trying to, as a human being, figure out, should I let this ad continue to run? Two things happen. A, you're wasting money in this period where the algorithm finds that spot and immediately begins lowering spend day by day. And then B, you have to allocate that spend somewhere else. So the algorithm, what it would do is it would find, okay, during this period, we're not doing as well. So boom, this brown ad here that I've identified should start to pick up more spend. Okay. It is balancing the total spend budget that you've given it. Whereas this example here has a negative event, you're losing money, and then you're not increasing anything naturally unless you force more spend into other spots. So you are actually creating your own inefficiencies within your ad account if you run in an ABO system. One big thing about the pack system that comes up a lot is that people launch new packs and then it gets a little too congested over time, and only a couple of the packs actually get appropriate amounts of spend. Now, there's a lot of like back and forth that could be hashed out around this. The one thing that you can basically do, just to give you all a tool in the toolkit that I've talked about before, the one thing you can do is you could set advertiser minimum budgets or ad set minimum budgets on new ad sets. The way that I like to do this is so simple. Let's say we just introduced this new pack today, and all of our other packs, we have 15 other packs in the ad account. They're all spending, they're all ripping, they know what they're going to spend every day. And every time I add a new pack, it gets like $5 in spend and it doesn't ever get any pickup. Now, I could argue that that's probably because the algorithm doesn't like that ad. It's probably not as good as your other ads. You might think, well, it's the same ad. Yeah, but it doesn't have the comments. It doesn't have the social proof. It doesn't have a lot of other elements that are actually very important to the ad itself. Flip that on its head. We spent money on these ads. We, took the time to make a photo shoot. We potentially, spend thousands of dollars on the creator or whatnot. We need this to get some spend. What I like to do is I like to set that advertiser or ad set minimum budget, and I like to do it very simply. I like to do it 1x the CPA. Okay? 1x the cost per acquisition. So you guarantee yourself, if this ad is going to be successful, that it gets one purchase every day. I'm not saying that that's all we want this ad to do. Not at all. But I'm going to add this example to our chart here. We're going to use a black line for this. Now, let's say this is what our account looks like. Sometimes what happens when you launch a completely fresh ad, let me move this up a little bit. I'm going to reduce the size and we're going to move this up just so we could see everything clearly. Okay. So sometimes when we launch a completely brand new ad, what winds up happening is it just goes like this. It just is at literally like $5 a day in spend, and everything else is spending thousands every single day. What setting a minimum does, if it's 1x your CPA, let's say it's $50, all it's going to do is just give it a little bit more. So while instead of starting here, it just starts a little bit higher, and it's just collecting purchases, right? So each of these, we'll use green lines. Each of these green lines is a new purchase. And then what Facebook will do is it's much more likely to recognize that because it has purchases and it's under, or in a bad case, worse than your average ROAS or worse than your average CPA. But if it's better, it's going to pick up spend beyond the minimum that you set. So what I like to do is I like to set these minimums for somewhere around a week, maybe 2 weeks at most. After a 2-week period, if it's not getting more spend, remove that minimum and just let it find its home. The key, what happens here, what we really want to happen here, is we want it to run with a minimum. And then instead of staying at that minimum, this is what you would expect. Most people think, well, if I set $50 a day, it's just going to spend 50 a day. No, we're not setting maximums, we're setting minimums. So what usually winds up happening is because you give it a head start, instead of starting down here, this is not where we start. We start down here. We start a little bit higher, and instead of spending flat, it spends 50, 50, 50 for a few days. Oh, it grabs some purchases. Oh, it realizes that it's actually a good ad, maybe. And then it could actually work its way to grow and scale. Sometimes it looks like that line. Sometimes it looks like a spike. But it just gives it a little bit of a head start. Very effective to do when you have a lot of ads in your ad account and you don't want to expand beyond the pack structure. You want to keep your single campaign modular format in place. So those are the most important things that we need to know about the pack system. The other little caveats, questions that come up a lot are when I move an ad, when I graduate an ad, when I duplicate an ad, do I delete it from the pack? The answer is always no. You never ever pause down an ad that's functioning in a pack. So if this broad pack here has 5 different ads and you took one of these ads and you graduated into your scale campaign, you're not deleting this ad. You're just keeping it going. You're getting multiple duplicates of the same ad in the ad account. That's pretty much the core principles of the pack system. Generally speaking, we're not pausing down packs. Generally speaking, we aren't really even pausing down ads unless they're really, really bad. Most of the time, we just want to create this very competitive system so the best ads rise to the top. And the key of why we never run an ABO outside of what I already iterated or talked about is we heavily minimize wasted ad spend because the CBO will spend very, 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 very little on the poor performing ads, which is also why that minimum budget threshold um, needs to be really, really, really low. And on top of being really, really low, only available for a short period of time because we don't want to always run $50 a day on every single new ad set. All of a sudden, next thing